You either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
By listening to this podcast, you will conform to the identity we give you. You will have no identifying marks of any kind. You will like the same movies we like, and you will hate the movies we hate. You will not stand out in any way. Your entire image is now crafted to conform to the good, the bad, and the weird. You are a weirdo, recognizable by the same taste in movie as us. The good, the bad, and the weird is your native tongue. You are no longer part of the system. You are above the system. You are us, and we are you. We are the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
If you haven't figured out, it's that time of year for Eyes to the Skies.
Aliens! And what better summer blockbuster hit style movie to do for aliens, the theme, than Men in Black.
Exactly.
The first one, to be specific. We are focusing it in.
Yes. And I have a lot of lore written in this episode,
Okay, so I have a great love for Men in Black, not because, the movie itself holds a special place in my heart, but because this alien movie has done to pop culture what no other alien movie really managed to do. Others had big splashes. Mm-hmm. Others had big impacts. But none of them have become so ingrained in society where, even if you haven't seen Men in Black since it came out, you still remember certain bits.
Yes.
There are certain bits that you probably don't even remember were part of this movie, but they continue. They are part of our language now.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it was open conspiracy theory before, it really hit the mainstream. I mean, it's always been around, but,
Yes. It knew its audience, it knew itself really well, and on top of that, it knew from the get-go, what sort of splash they were hoping to make with it. They gambled a little bit, and they knew they had the odds in their favor. So, even before they, finish off this movie, they're like, you know what, we gotta start a line of toys and games. and
Burger King toys.
Yeah, which, this is prime real estate 90s movie.
Yeah.
It has all the hallmarks for a 90s summer blockbuster.
I had the Neuralizer for a long time.
Of course.
That's the only toy I remember. I think they had the noisy cricket and stuff too.
They definitely did. And it is still such a part that even if you don't remember the name of some of the devices, certain devices are okay, that's Men in Black.
Yes. So for those who are unfamiliar, the Men in Black is a 1997 action-adventure comedy about a pair of secret agents who are tasked with protecting the Earth from an extraterrestrial threat.
That's one way to sum it up.
Yes. It's directed by Barry Sonnenfeld and written by Ed Solomon and based off the Marvel Comics of the same name by Lowell Cunningham.
Yes.
It stars Tommy Lee Jones, Will Smith, Linda Fiorentino, and Vincent D'Onofrio. So Sonnenfeld previously started his directorial debut with The Addams Family, as well as The Addams Family Values.
Yeah, which, similar big series.
But he would also go on to direct Wild Wild West.
Yes, he did, which, if you haven't noticed, seems to kind of fit with the ideas and themes of Men in Black, but Western.
Yes, and if you remember, that was the third episode we ever did for this podcast.
Because I have a soft spot for dumb 90s shit.
Yes, you do. We all do.
Look at it. How can you not love it?
Yes. And while Cunningham is primarily known for his Men in Black series, he's also worked on a series of Star Wars shorts and parodies.
Yes.
As for Solomon, he was one of the writers for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Radical.
Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Also radical.
And the movie he worked on before Men in Black was Super Mario Bros.
I'm glad you spotted that. I think that is a good example of how well this guy does know humor.
Mm-hmm.
But he also did Now You See Me, which is a much more recent one, so I'm glad to see that he's evolved.
Yeah.
He's not still doing the same thing, but it's, still good stuff.
Well, he also did Charlie's Angels, too.
Oh, well, how can you not love the original Charlie's Angels?
It's fine.
It is. It is literally like the definition of fine.
Yes. So, Tommy Lee Jones has been in quite a bit before this, including Firebirds that stars our beloved Nicolas Cage.
Of course.
But also he was in JFK, Natural Born Killers,
Yep.
and a shit ton of movies.
Yeah, how dare you leave out Batman Forever and U.S. Marshals?
I'm sorry. As for Smith, right before Men in Black started, he had just come off of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And
he was like a hot name in households.
Well, he had also done Independence Day the year before.
Yeah, like, this is Will Smith in his, like, most recognizable peak of the 90s. Not only was he in his prime as far as, like, recognizable household face and name, but also people, like, were starting to take his music a little bit more seriously, which hilarious because he also sings one of the songs for this.
I don't know if anyone's ever took his music seriously.
He takes his music very seriously.
Yeah, he does.
And, like, that's kind of where everyone else was. Like, people knew all of the words to Fresh Prince. And, like, if you were really into it, you're like, oh, I also like his other stuff. So, like, he was definitely, like, we had two really big names coming in hard for this movie.
Oh, yeah, no. And they were both selected because I think it was the producers were reading the script in bed. And one of them thought of... I
love the way you word that to make it sound like they were in bed together.
They were. They were reading scripts in bed together before bedtime.
It's adorable.
Yeah. But one of them thought of Jones for K and Smith for J. And Jones actually signed on because of the comics themselves.
Makes sense.
Florentino had been in quite a bit leading up to Men in Black, including After Hours and The Last Seduction, but nothing I'm familiar with. But later she's more recognizable. She was in 1999's Dogma.
Yeah, definitely.
And as for D'Onofrio, dude was in quite a bit.
Yes.
I did not recognize him because it's a completely different role, and I learned he gained like 80 pounds for this. He was Private Pyle in Full Metal Jacket, the dude who offs himself.
Yes, he was. I knew him best from Law and Order Criminal Intent.
Oh, I did.
He has a recurring role.
Okay. But he was also in JFK, Ed Wood, and he would later be in The Cell, The Jurassic World, as well as the Magnificent Seven remake.
Of course.
And before we dive into everything, I do want to acknowledge our sources for the episode because there is quite a bit we're diving into.
Yes.
First off, the technical commentary by Barry Sonnenfeld, Rick Baker, Eric Breving, John Andrew Breton Jr., and Rube Coleman, as well as commentary by Barry Sonnenfeld and Tommy Lee Jones. Men in Black, the script and story behind the film by Ed Solomon, Diana Landau, and Walter F. Parkers, and Laurie MacDonald.
Yes.
Which surprisingly goes into quite a bit of the Men in Black lore itself, like the real life lore too, which was kind of interesting.
I love a good conspiracy.
As well as the Men in Black Official Agent's Handbook by Don Morgalis, which does have a dress code, policies on intergalactic dating that follows the old don't ask, don't tell policy of the military from the 90s.
Delightful.
Or before the 2010s. Expense reports, insurance and sexual harassment policies.
That's hilarious, and I love that.
Yeah.
Because this movie, one could argue, steps over those policies several times.
Yes. As well as episodes 323, 324, and 325 from the last podcast on the left, covering the said Men in Black.
And I dug up some beautiful old fun facts and knowledge from Universal Studios themselves, who pride themselves on this movie and have lots of fun little bits and recreations that are available for you to peruse at your browsing delight.
As well, I just have a lot of
aliens and
I
also
shit too.
stood in the line for Men in Black like 8 times when we went. So like I read every single plaque and looked at every single prop several times. I also stood behind like 8 different people who were like really into Men in Black. And I was like, I'm here mostly because I like the movie a little bit, and like this is the only shoot 'em up ride that doesn't have an hour-long wait.
Oh, you're talking about rides. Oh, I thought you were talking about standing in line for the movie.
I did not stand in line for this movie once in my entire life. No, the ride, which delightfully has not only a good bit of like, or at least when I went, it had a like interesting little bits for you to stand in line and observe and like read about and like see. but also, like, the staff who worked there were really into Men in Black and could answer quite a few questions.
I mean, it's their job to be really into Men in Black.
As someone who used to work at an amusement park, I can guarantee you it's not. They were just on point.
All right. So, as mentioned earlier, the Men in Black is based on the comics of the same name.
Yes.
But before we get into that, who are the Men in Black?
Tell me more.
The Men in Black are a supposed agency who exists for the sole purpose of suppressing extraterrestrial encounters and spreading misinformation.
Boy, this sounds like the start of a lot of different conspiracy theories.
Yes. And though there are variations on the Men in Black that have existed since long ago, even before the original term of the Men in Black.
Literally since government.
Or just even religion. There's tales of Men in Black that are come to spread ruin and turmoil.
Oh, yeah. No, literally. Like, this is the conspiracy as old as time.
The Men in Black were popularized in the 1950s and 60s in the ufology communities, or the ufology communities, depends on how you pronounce it.
And, like, at the same time, like, it makes sense there was a whole lot of, like, interest in this sort of, like, early growth and interest in the, like, tinfoil hat conspiracies, aliens. Like, this all works. This all fits in.
And primarily through a man, ufologist called Albert K. Bender.
That is a great name.
Oh, no, it's awesome. He was a big nerd, too. He actually founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau, who published space reviews, where he claimed to have discovered the mystery to flying saucers.
I'm pretty sure this information was covered multiple times on the History Channel.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love it.
He was subsequently been warned by 3 members of a U.S. government organization wearing dark suits that he should stop his investigations into UFOs.
Wow, sounds very convincing.
Yeah, something he would later write in his 1962 book, Flying Saucers and 3 Men.
A great title.
Where the story gets a little bit muddled, as Bender also infers that the aliens, or that the Men in Black are aliens, because he has a story where they took him to their South Pole base.
I do remember hearing about the South Pole base. It is interesting to see. And we're not going to cover, because we could spend the whole episode doing nothing but talking about this guy and, like, subsequent followers of him. And, like, the number of people who have similar but slightly different variations on fill-in blank location base here, South Pole being one of the favorites, because, like, you can't get there, supposedly.
There's a lot of secretive to it.
Yes, despite the fact that you can literally take a tour to go see it.
Yeah. But if you do get a chance, go back and listen to the last podcast on the left's coverage of it. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah. They do a fantastically humorous job covering a lot of different nooks and crannies over him.
And so there's a lot to the Men in Black, as there are multiple iterations. Some are government agents, some are aliens in disguise, an attempt to blend in with society. Think of 3 raccoons in a trench coat.
I mean, that would be on point for this movie.
But one of the things that the story always attempts to be, or that they're always attempting to be, is normal.
I do love that, because as someone who struggles with the concept of normal, I find it hilarious that there is, supposedly, a government-officiated maybe, or maybe aliens, who are trying to blend in so much that they have gone the other way and have become the most iconic, recognizable substance of conspiracy theories on planet Earth. Like, that is the way to be awkward. Like, don't know what to do with your face and hands? Go so extreme that it's wrong.
Well, even the lore itself is muddled, and I think that's what's great about it, too, is because it being muddled adds to the lore of them spreading misinformation on the Men in Black.
No, I completely agree. I think that's why, like, not only, like, the conspiracy around this movie, as far as, like, where it comes from, the inspiration, all that, but, like, it fits in with the movie itself, because it is so batshit bonkers, and none of it lines up, none of it actually matches. It's just kind of like this vague idea, and, like, no details really overlap very well. No, there's no timeline to this. It's just kind of like, there has always been men in suits. Yeah. You're like,
There's spooks around.
There are spooks. Are they aliens? I don't know. But, like, that's why it works, because that is the level of, like, open-ended nonsense that 90s style humor and action requires for it to be, like, this, like, substantial pool to have any hope of holding a plot. Because, like, if you were to look at this with any detail, None of this makes sense. Neither the conspiracy nor the movie make any sense.
I'll get into that, because though the movie is based on the urban legend of the Men in Black, the original image for the movie in its iteration was New York street cops in the vein of the French Connection while blending the lore with it.
Yeah, sure.
As well, the original comic, I guess, was more straightforward, but producers Parker and McDonald wanted to expand to the Men in Black characters rather than just being about aliens the whole time.
Which makes sense because, like, from a comic book standpoint, you're going to have a whole bunch of iterations happening, or at least you hope so. And so, like, I could see where focusing on the aliens would be much more interesting. Whereas with a movie where they ended up with a bunch of other stuff, but you kind of have to bank on the first one being, like, enticing.
Yes.
Easier to focus on the two agents.
Yep. And even before the idea of what they wanted the movie to be, the movie began in 1992 when Parker's and McDonald optioned for the comic book series, The Men in Black by Lowell Cunningham, who published... The publication ran from 1990 to 1991 by Aerosol Comics, who ended up being acquired by Malibu Comics, who was acquired by Marvel in 1994.
Which is why, like, when you, like, read, like, oh, the comics are by Marvel, they mean that Marvel now, like, owns them, but, like, they're not doing anything with them. Calm down. They're, like, at no point are we getting Star-Lord and Men in Black crossover, unfortunately.
Yeah. And Cunningham himself heard of the Men in Black myth when he was cruising with a buddy who was into this stuff, and they passed a black sedan that didn't fit in with, like, their university's neighborhood. And he pointed out that looked like a car the Men in Black would drive.
I do love that, because, like, now we have kind of, like, the similar, like, point and look where it's either, like, that's a mob car, that's a Secret Service car, or that's a, like, hidden cop car. And, like, you know exactly which car that is, depending on your area. They do change a little bit, but, like, everyone knows, and, like, subconsciously, like, that one's a weird... Nah, nobody drives that. But, like, people do.
The very conspicuous mystery machine that occasionally is seen here.
I love whoever drives that is brilliant, because they don't drive it frequently, and they don't drive the same route every time. They just occasionally go for a tootle. I love it.
And the windows are blacked out, too.
Yes!
They're heavily tinted.
Occasionally, like, way back in the day, it had body work done in a place nearby our office. And so, like, you knew it existed, and then it got done to having its body work done, and, like, you just didn't see it for, like, weeks on end.
Yeah.
Is great. Now, that's the sort of, like, silliness that this thrives on.
So, from here, Cunningham became obsessed, and that's where he started with Men in Black.
Yes.
And then from there, Parks liked it because... in comparison to other superhero comics, the Men in Black were just regular people fighting aliens.
Which works really well, especially for 90s style action, which usually did focus a lot more on a average Joe Blow being forced into action, high adventure, as opposed to, like, nowadays where we see, like, everyone is ready to be a, like, parkour gymnast and wield a sword. Yeah,
no, exactly. And from here, Steven Spielberg Production Company was, brought in. It's called Amblin Entertainment.
Sure is.
Because the producers thought his production company would be the best, which Steven Spielberg was the executive producer and has a cameo in the movie.
You know what? Good for him.
He's one of the aliens on the television screen.
I love it. Yes, there's a lot of good little Easter eggs in this movie, like, little sprinkled in.
Yeah, and they weren't wrong. I mean, he had the company had produced and he had directed. Well, he produced and directed these E.T. in 1982,
a classic,
and he wrote and directed Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1977.
Which both, again, you know, like solid examples of alien movies, but while E.T. has some action to it, most of those focused a lot more towards like the more serious what ifs as opposed to the very comedical, like, over the topness that Men in Black did. So this was for a lot of people like the like prime alien real estate monster nonsense that they were hoping for.
No, exactly. And so from here they brought Solomon on to write the movie because they liked the comic, but it was a bit grittier than what they were wanting.
It definitely is lacking in the like humor region.
Yes. And so they thought he would be the best person to liven it up a little bit.
And honestly, like his writing style fits the time period really nicely.
Yeah. And at the time, he even wasn't really sure about doing a comic book movie.
I mean, it wasn't as, like, it was by no means as, like, common as it is today. And even the few times it had happened, it wasn't the massive success that it, like, is almost guaranteed to be now.
No, exactly. Or at least opening box office success.
Yes. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, Men in Black did well, but it wasn't because people were, like, lining up because they loved the comic.
No. And this journey ended up being 4 years long, because not only did they have a difficult time finding the direction where to go with, but at the same time, variations of the comic became coming out, and the original plot for the movie was mostly underground, and half of it was in, like, Laurel, Kansas.
Which, okay, from a conspiracy theory-wise, makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
From a blockbuster movie, though, I can see why they wanted New York. It is much more recognizable.
Yes.
And you know, I think contractually everyone in the 90s was obligated to put their movies in either Hollywood or New York, and Hollywood didn't make sense, so.
Yeah. New York, the big city, anything can happen.
And
Dreams come true.
In the 90s, everything happened in New York.
Nicolas Cage, it's bitten by a bat. Actually, I think that was 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, that was 90s.
But I mean, their ultimate goal for this movie was to create a mainstream movie with a little bit of strangeness to it.
And they very much succeeded.
Yeah. And then Sonnenfeld was selected for a style of sophisticated underplay and comedic tone behind the action. And from here, I know we had a little bit of a long backstory for it, but
The Men in Black.
Now we're on to it. But before we get into it, Chris, what are we drinking today?
Well, other than alien goop, they don't drink a ton of options in this movie, but they do drink a lot of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought to ourselves, they need a hard, stiff drink at the end of all of this.
Yeah.
So you have found us a beautiful...
double shot espresso rum or something.
Delightful. Cheers. That is delightful.
It's very coffee heavy.
I am going to go out and buy a bottle of that myself when we're done with this. Ooh. That might be my entire Friday. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm going to get so much done.
So, The Men in Black.
Oh, yes. And it opens with a very catchy tune.
Very catchy tune by Danny Elfman.
Yes, because, you know, again, this is the 90s, and all music was required to be done by Danny Elfman.
Or if you wanted something weird, it was Danny Elfman. And quirky is the right term.
And also epic. The man's styling always kind of, like, wins people over for the most part. Like, it's hard to not like his styling, even if it's, you know, a little over the top. This is the 90s. It's an alien movie. Over the top works. Yeah.
And, I mean, I like... It has a very interesting opening credit, kind of like how Hellraiser did it a little bit.
I like a bunch of text before the movie, because that's when my attention is at its best. And if you try to tell me all of this stuff at the end, then I'm relying on that ending credit to be the most entertaining thing to have ever happened in cinema. Whereas if you put it at the beginning like this, where it's just a dragonfly really kind of going about his day, and some text coming in and out, I will manage to sit through it and pay attention.
Interesting.
I think this is, okay, this used to be a thing where all of the credits were before a movie.
Yeah.
Like, that used to be like the thing. I miss that. Do that. I don't have time to sit through 4 hours of credits at the end of Avatar: The Waterworld.
Just get rid of any post-credit bullshit nowadays.
Yes. No, the end should be for, like, the special thank yous. And then I am leaving. I have to pee so bad at the end of a movie. I don't have time. But I do want to know, like, who's involved.
Yeah.
And, like, if you put even the most minor amount of effort into a credit, I do want to see it. Just not at the end. Put it at the beginning. That's when people are talking anyway. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good way to start, like, any kind of, like, light and fun movie is you have, like, this little kind of interesting sequence, because... And here's what I like about this, too, is it immediately puts your eyes to the skies right away. There's a lot of focus on the moon and the stars.
I love that.
One, I do want to say that the effects are still pretty decent.
Yes. And a lot of that is because they were all done by the same company who did Star Wars. Visual effects were done by Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
So, like, it will look good.
George Lucas and Steven Spielberg.
It's hard to say no. And on top of that, while a lot of the computer work, of course, still holds up and looks just fine, most of the, like, really over-the-top stuff was done with actual props. So, like, it's hard to get the moon and the stars to look bad.
Yeah. I mean, they're just lights.
Yeah, you can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah. But I also like it because it's a little bit of foreshadowing, because, surprise, surprise, this movie ends almost in a similar manner to how it begins, where we're all just bugs in the universe.
I do like that. I like the poeticness of the, like, overarching kind of story that, like, you completely forget about halfway through.
Yeah, there was some actual, like, serious thought put into...
Like, there's an actual, like, world-ending serious stuff that's supposed to be happening, and there's just so much nonsense going on all the time that you completely forget that you're supposed to be worried for the Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, a little bit of trivia. The credits were done by the same dude who did Dr. Strangelove and The Addams Family.
They look great.
Yeah. But the bug dies, and we see a car escorting illegal immigrants who stops at the border by Border Patrol, and it's not hiding them very well. They're just kind of chilling in the back of a truck.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most obvious joke to ever have joked in an alien film, where we have an alien hiding amongst aliens. Hilarious.
Alienception.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But at the same time, like, I expect it because of the styling of this movie, so, like, good on you for, you know, immediately meeting my expectations.
Yeah, because the Men in Black immediately show up after this, too, after they've gotten everyone kind of rounded up.
I do appreciate that they show up very promptly.
Oh, yeah, we find out why, because they're tracking people.
Yes. Okay, again, if you do not look at the, like, hows and workings of the Men in Black group very closely, this movie flows lovely.
Oh, no.
Like, pacing, great. Do not think too hard about how any of this functions.
Oh, no, not how it functions, but them acknowledging how they do certain things. Like, yes. they do like, a good job.
There is some thought behind all of it, and then, like, clearly they went, and that's enough thought put into how this all won't function. Let's go.
Yep. Fun little bit, too. Tommy Lee Jones actually speaks Spanish, which was great for them.
That's perfect.
So they didn't have to dub over him. And as the aliens line up, one of these things is not like the others.
I do appreciate how there is a very, like, wide array of aliens in disguise throughout this movie, where it ranges from, like, a quick little, like, oh, out of the corner of your eye, you might miss it, to that man acts like 3 raccoons in a trench coat piloting his skin with marionette strings.
Yeah.
Like, I really appreciate, and this was something that they had, like, consciously decided to do, was, like, all of our aliens are going to look completely bonkers, and none of them are going to look the same. They were like, we don't want Star Trek aliens. We don't want Star Wars aliens. We don't want humanoids. We want weird, slimy bugs.
Yeah, well, they even talked about that, too, of, like, hey, if we do... They tried creating non-humanoid creatures, and the question always came up, well, if I'm talking to this thing, how do I know it's looking at me? How do I know it's talking to me without doing the whole mind or the telepathy bullshit?
I think this movie, at least for me, I think this one toes it the best. Because the way that the Star Wars universe had always gotten around that was, for the most part, incredibly humanoid aliens. With a handful of much less humanoid, but still, like, they have human faces or, like, expressions. And yes, they're speaking a alien language, but, like, either it's subtitled for you, or they just, like, exposition over what whoever that was just said, so you don't miss anything. Whereas with Men in Black, they give funky little accents to everybody. Or they use subtext. And, like, none of the aliens look even remotely the same.
No.
And while everyone has enough of a face that you can at least tell what direction they're looking for the most part, it is goofy enough to feel like a fun alien movie as opposed to, like, dystopian world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on top of it, it balances the serious nature or some of the serious parts with good comedy. Like, it's well-written comedy, too. It's not just like, oh, he said the thing, or it was like a situational comedy. Well,
and also it helps, like, differentiate them from pretty much the rest of the Alien movies up until arguably very recently. And I would argue still most of them don't do this very well. There's been a couple of, like, Alien TV shows that I've caught my husband be like, I'm gonna watch all of this weekend. And some of those have, like, fairly interesting aliens, but again, most of them are, again, humanoid. I really like the slimy bugs. This feels to me much more entertaining. It's much more interesting. It, like, explores without actually, like, thinking too hard about what aliens could possibly look like. And it also adds the most beautiful level of stupid humor, which is my kind of humor. I want pugs as aliens.
I mean, they kind of are alien looking
Yes,
their own way.
Look at them. That's not right. I love them dearly, but that's not right.
Yeah, but the alien is actually the illegal alien is an alien named Mikey who is on the run.
I love how that they have a repeat offender named Mikey. Because they weren't looking for Mikey. They're like, Mikey, what are you doing here?
According to the handbook, his actual name is Yikim Zeshao or something.
Sure, that's alien to me.
You know what his crime was?
I don't. I know. I learned it at one point and I have since forgotten. Tell me.
He introduced an alien artichoke species with non-removable spines.
That is correct. I remember that now. Yes. Which is hilarious to me because that is the least offensive thing an alien could be doing to be tracked down by the government.
No. Well, okay, so they do bring up that this isn't why he's... they're taking him down.
No.
They're taking him down because he's broken some trees by crossing across borders and going to where he's not supposed to.
Yes, but also, like, they have clearly picked Mikey up several times before.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the handbook and, like, all of the fun lore I could find, like, that's his, like, one offense. Is this, like, artichoke thing. He's really into these artichokes.
For some reason.
And they keep arresting him.
But this interaction was also done as another way to set the tone for the movie.
Does a great job.
But Mikey's spotted by Border Patrol, who they end up having to kill Mikey because he's going to go kill... I do like the eyes, how they swivel back, because that's one thing that I think they do a good job with is even the ones that are humanoid-ish, they are
gross enough to be alien. Like, they're not like, oh, wow, they're slightly blue. They're gross. Yeah,
and they give them, like, little quirks of, like, you think stock eyes, they're going to look forward, but they can't all the way turn back like we saw.
Exactly.
Yeah. And honestly, the part of the reason I think the CGI works so well is because it's very much like last year when we did, like, Placid, and they talked about how they knew that the CGI was never going to always hold up. And so they start...
stylize.
And they combine practical and physical, or practical and digital effects, so that way they could actually make it work. Or try and make it work and not date it as much. And on top of that...
Yes.
The CGI was done so well is because this full suit was scanned. So they had a physical model that they could go with.
And on top of that, because of the design choices for the alien, and also because they knew, like, all right, we have a limitation with, like, physical props that need to match the CGI and vice versa, it gave this movie a very distinct style and look that, like, you could not necessarily pin down. It's not like a design style, but at the same time, if you see something that is Men in Black themed, even from the other two, even from the spinoff or the animated show, you know what it is. And, like, you're like, okay, even if I can't tell you immediately Men in Black, I know where this belongs. I know what it's supposed to look like. I know this is a 90s thing. I know this is, like, aiming at 13-year-old boys. And it works. It's why it still looks good.
Well, actually, that's kind of interesting that you brought that up. So I actually watched Men in Black 2 and 3 on top of this, because I hadn't seen 2 since I saw it in theaters.
Fair. I mean,
it's
where it belongs.
It's important for me because that movie was, like, the first movie I remember coming back from, like, that wasn't a very good movie.
No, it's not.
And, but the second one, the second one very much did that, where the alien's some Victoria's Secret model, and she's constantly showing her bra and tits.
Yes. And, like, they knew that this was going to be 13-year-old boy material from the, like, right, like, before it managed to hit main theaters. They were like, okay, we need to have board games aimed at boys. We need to have a bunch of gross toys. Again, this is the 90s, so, like, aimed at boys. And then I think it was only, like, a little ways after this ended, they got prime spot for an animated TV show on Kids WB. Yeah. Which Kids WB, for the most part, was aimed at the boy crowd. Like, they were the ones who were looking for, not necessarily Nickelodeon slime gross, because that one was like, aha, gross slime. WB was like, edgy boys, roller skates,
yeah.
Dude.
I mean, Johnny Knoxville's in the second one, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But also, I'm glad you brought that up because the alien explodes.
Yes.
Just all over the place.
So goopy. I love a Goopy, though. It's
Well,
so
they also had to change the color because they couldn't make it red.
No, they couldn't. Which, honestly, that sort of limitation adds to the, like, memorabilia of Men in Black and, like, what makes it stand out. Because I think if they had gone more realistic, like what the comics books did, I don't think this movie would have been successful. People in, like, during this time period, we weren't looking for this, like, deep exploration of our society and, like, how we treat others with using aliens as as a means to talk about that, like Arrival, or like pretty much any TV show that's like, you know, straight to Amazon or Hulu or whatever nowadays. Men in Black was like, you could have made those arguments, but it was here for the silly.
Yeah,
and we don't have a whole lot of just for the silly anymore. It was that's good. Like, we need to be talking and looking at these things, but like, if they had done this with more seriousness. First off, I don't think as many people would have watched it, because this, despite not really being appropriate for children during the 90s, no one cared. So, like, this was solely aimed at kids. Rated
PG-13, and I'm very sure I saw this before I even hit double digits.
Oh, yeah, no, we all did. Like, this was back in the day where everything below an R was fair game. Like, unless you had a parent who was very strict.
Yeah.
Like, for the most part, it was like, oh, you want to go see this silly alien film? Like, yeah, it's a boys' film. Yeah, it's going to be kind of gross. But, like, none of us were thinking, like, oh, there's going to be bad language. There could be blood. There could be, like, this existential crisis on the U.S. government.
Yeah, because there's really not any bad language.
No, like, this is... I mean, it's a bit much, but, like, for the most part, they were like, yeah, you know what? This should be for adults, but what if we just made it for kids?
Okay. And I do gotta correct you, it is not the U.S. government who's controlling these people.
You're right, they are above the U.S. government. I am so sorry, my tinfoil hat brethren.
Yes. Thank you. But it's time for decontamination. We get our first shot of the neuralizer.
I love the neuralizer.
Which, according to the handbook, any group over 150 is not credible witnesses. So...
I love how that's, like, kind of sort of true.
Yeah.
But, like, at the same time, this device shaped pop culture to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is still so solidly placed in everyone's memories that even if it isn't, like, a running gag anymore, you still know it. Like, it's still, like, in there as, like, a possibility to a potential gag.
It kind of looks a bit like a sex toy.
Of course it does. It's the 90s.
But also, the handbook says that you can dismiss this as a paranormal phenomena, which, like, that's any better than aliens.
Well, okay, and here's the best part. Again, if you look at this plot too long, it totally dissolves, which is, I think, the best part of it. Multiple times, they use this thing and then break their own rules for how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, all right, you flash the light, they forget everything, and then, like, sometimes they don't even bother to tell anyone a new background story. It doesn't really explain how long, like, they're like, oh, well, I can dial in how long. But, like, they just erased, one of the agent's, like, entire working memory. This man's how old?
I don't know.
Pretty old. Been working here a while.
Okay, later on.
Yeah, like, we're coming up, we're coming up real quick on them, just like, this is your retirement gig. There is no explanation. Like, sometimes it's like, oh, he's not gonna remember the whole day, we gotta feed him a story. And then other times it's like, oh, he's just gonna forget this little bit. And then sometimes they just blink it and leave. And so, like, there's gonna be people standing in the desert being like, what are we doing here? I think they told them there's, like, a gas explosion in the desert.
Yeah, they tell the cops that they're lucky to be alive.
Yeah, that is the dumbest cover story I've ever freaking heard.
It's better than swamp gas.
It is, but, like, that, honestly, swamp gas in the desert would have made more sense than a pipeline in the desert.
Yeah, but also, fun little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The handbook also says that they are supposed to fill out a report each time they use it.
They definitely fucking don't.
I'm glad that the MIB have.
No, okay, this is why, like, the potential for 2 and 3, like, people were excited for them, and, like, while 2 flopped, as far as, like, enjoyment levels, why people still went to 3 was because there is, like, a lot of room for deep analysis into the functioning workings of Men in Black.
Yeah.
And they do not cover it.
No, not at all. Not even in the third one.
No.
When they introduced the moon base.
Not even in the...
Not a moon base, a moon prison.
Yeah, there's a moon prison. They don't explain it in the spinoff. movie.
God.
They barely kind of sort of like make running gags about it in the animated series. Like they would occasionally be like, that's more paperwork for me. And like that was it. Honestly, the most fleshed out version of this is from Monsters Inc. And that's like a parody of Men in Black.
Yeah, now that you bring that up.
Again, Men in Black influenced a lot. Yes, it's not like a direct parody, but like there are ties.
Yeah.
They got their own version of Men in Black.
I can see it. But also what I like about this intro is that it's simple.
Yes.
It sets up the world.
It does.
It has enough mystery.
Yeah.
And it also tells us that the old man fumbling with his gun shows that this is an older agency and they're kind of losing their touch a little bit.
Which, I mean, again, if you think about it hard, there could be stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, forget all of that.
Yeah, because we cut to an LAPD officer chasing down a dude who jumps off a bridge and lives.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
This is a tall bridge.
Fun day for a group of Asian tourists as Will Smith drops down on them.
Surprise!
Which also, a little fun bit about this scene is, and you'll see it throughout the movie if you rewatch it, there are circles everywhere.
There are.
Originally, they wanted to have this at the Philharmonics, but at the last minute, the Philharmonics asked them to pay more money, and they're like, no. So they ended up going with the Guggenheim, which
Beautiful.
works a lot better for this movie, I think.
It really does, because, like, look at the Guggenheim. That's spaceshipy.
Even like for Frank Lloyd Wright's work, it's weird.
It was very outside of his normal gig for the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like really pushing it for himself. And on top of that, like, this movie tried very hard to make sure that all of the big names and landmarks that they used were going to, like, continue to be big names and landmarks.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not some of the background actors and actresses made it, that's up for debate. But architecturally, New York-wise, they did manage to pick, like, these are big New York places. They are not necessarily the top 5 New York ones.
I'd only say the Guggenheim is like their big one.
Okay, the Guggenheim is a big one because we are architects. Normal people do not go to the toilet building. On your first go to New York City, unless you are a weird art nerd or an architecture nerd, the Guggenheim should not be on your list. There's other New York things to do. Go be a different tourist. The Guggenheim's not that interesting unless you're an architect.
Yeah, true.
And then you need a section cut of it for it to really be interesting.
Yeah, it's an odd one.
It's kind of ugly. Let's not lie ourselves, guys.
Just a bit. But part of the reason I like this intro to Jay's character is that from the get-go, it shows that he's thinking outside the box. He's obviously different than the other cops. He's in shape. And he's also...
I like how that's, like, defining feature, but it really is, yeah.
Yeah, but he's also willing to jump off a bridge onto a bus.
A double-decker bus, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I do like how the qualifying features to be an agent for this mysterious organization seem to have to be, are you willing to do some really crazy parkour shit?
Mm-hmm.
And how not upset are you by the idea of aliens?
Yeah.
Like, that's it. That's kind of all it really takes.
Yeah, because also what this is establishing, too, is it's not just an alien pretending to be a Mexican immigrant.
No.
Or illegal alien. But the guy pulling out his weapon is also to bring us and show us that, hey, it's not just isolated to certain areas. This is in New York City.
Yes. I also love, though, that, and this is part of the writers and directors' idea, was that, like, if we moved all of this, if we centralized the whole movie as much as we could to New York City, that will make the most sense, because New York is used to this weird-ass shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if it's even weirder, then you know.
But that's why they chose New York, is so that way the weird stuff would fit in, because people wouldn't bat an eye that it was something weird was happening in New York.
And on top of that, this is also like a 90s version of New York, where it was assumed that New York was one of two places. Hyper glamorized, but only for Christmas. Or the weirdest fucking place on Earth that is also incredibly dangerous. Why would anyone ever want to live there?
Yeah.
Those were your two options for New York movies in the 90s. And so, like, they went with it, and they're like, you know what? Everyone has already said that New York weird place. Just got, like, random people walking down the street. So, like, if we had 3 raccoons in a trench coat wearing a human skin, no one would notice.
No, exactly. Well, and because that's the other thing that sets him off is the dude blinks weird, which, again, ties into the Men in Black wearing human suits.
I do like that.
A little bit.
Yes.
But also, it's lacking the red lipstick and everything, too. But,
yeah.
But also, I know it's supposed to be a forewarning of, like, something even bigger is coming.
Of course.
But I don't get why he jumps off the roof here and dies. Like, I assume maybe the Men in Black are coming for him, but...
They do not explain. Again, do not look too closely at the plot.
Yeah. Because from here we cut to a farm with a man bitching about his wife and his life as something crashes into his truck. The comedic bit of this being that the only thing that pulls his weight, its weight around here is now destroyed.
Yes, poor truck.
Not even he pulls the weight, the truck pulls the weight.
It's literally just the truck.
Yeah. Which I like that there's a little bit of, because he goes out to investigate and gets snatched up, but I like that there's not like, there's kind of the Wilhelm scream, but it's not the full Wilhelm scream.
It is goofy enough to be recognized as a comedy scream, but it is not so out of left field that I feel embarrassed for having listened to it.
No.
It is a nice balance, much like the rest of this movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I do have questions on this, because I don't know how this... Again, the physics. I don't know how the bugs fit inside the or the human skins.
No, okay. Again, do not think too hard about this. The logic and physics of this world do not work at any point, at any time. To further emphasize that, a lot of the choices they made were made for not necessarily like a logic purpose or even to like match the comics, which a couple of the aliens kind of do, but like most of the design choices were made for like, okay, we have this prop that we've made for it. Now we're going to have the CGI guys come back in and work with that to make it into like a more fleshed out piece. But we also need this to be very over the top. We need this to like be able to match up with just, you know, big summer blockbuster hits. We can't have all these little human-sized aliens running around. We gotta have some big stuff.
Yeah, big baddies.
We need big baddies, but we also need human actors because we're not CGIing them for the entire movie.
No. Well, yeah, no, I can see that. But I also, what I like about this bit too is that the skin doesn't fit.
I do. No, like, while the plot doesn't work, someone was in charge of details for this movie, and that someone deserved a fucking raise. Because, yes, the alien skins often do not fit. Half of the, like, physical props feel like they're, like, clearly wrong. Like, at first glance, you're like, wow, you're holding a lobster hand there, huh?
Yeah.
But it works.
It feels old school Star Trek a little bit.
And then, like, a lot of the, like, written text and written, like, bits or even, like, background pictures, background things that are happening were thought through to some degree, even if, like, in this own world it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I also like... I like that they do show stuff a little bit off, too, because, like, because he goes back into the house demanding sugar water, like, sugar water.
Yeah, like... I mean...
Like, to the point where, like, it's not even dissolved in the water, it's just sugar.
This man is making hummingbird fruit over here and just drinking it.
Which I guess he had him, like, he had to do, like, 5 or 6 takes of that, and it was pure sugar water.
I mean, good on him, but also, like, any southern person could drink that. That's just tea without the tea.
Ugh, gross. But it's... When he stretches his face is funny.
It is. Like, all of this could have been too much for, like, a 13-year-old audience. Like, this all could have been very serious, very scary, almost, like, horror adjacent. But because they chose to go with comedic timing, with, like, over-the-topness with the props, everything sounds, too. Like, when he adjusts his skin suit, it doesn't, like, go quietly. Like, everything has a sound effect. Yeah,
and the way he stretches it back is, like, over the top, too.
Yeah, like, everything is so goofy that it, like, changes the entire tone of the movie to keep it light enough that you're like, yeah, I'll let my kids watch this.
Yeah.
Without it being like, wow, I let my kids watch this, didn't I?
Yeah.
I mean, it gets close. This could have been really gross, but instead they went with like a gross, wet, sloppy sound.
Very much so. But the wife faints, and we get this little bit of him pulling out the very classic flying saucer.
Hilarious. I love it.
And from here we cut back to New York City, where no one believes the officer we saw earlier's story, which, that's the thing, is no one ever, well, I guess back in the day, no one ever believed. Now it's so mainstream.
Well, and like that's kind of the whole point of the play on Men in Black is like, the general public doesn't believe in aliens. We're like, nowadays everyone's at least aware enough of these conspiracy theories that like you could have a good go with it. You could enjoy talking about it, even if it was a random strange person.
Conspiracy theories, like how, like what was it, when the pandemic was starting and the government was like releasing alien footage, and everyone's like, yeah, of course you are. Like,
yeah, we knew it. Yeah, like the entire United States was like, yeah, we fucking knew it.
But that kind of ties into the Men in Black about the government itself now potentially spreading misinformation about what they have and what they don't have.
It's all a circle, baby.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why this works, and that's why I think this, like, them choosing to put this in New York, where they've not only assumed the audience is willing to, like, believe that no one in New York, but also, like, just letting this happen there feels like the best possible case scenario. Because if this was in a small town and the local sheriff just started spouting nonsense about aliens, this would be a different movie.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Like, it's...
Like, that's what E.T. was like, oh, the kid can't tell anybody because people think he's crazy.
Or you take the other aspect of it with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and it almost destroys this dude's life with his obsession over these aliens.
And, like, this is also a really good play on how involved and, like, for or against aliens the government is, where Men in Black goes fully, like, government is not only involved, but they are like, we have a whole department dedicated to the aliens. Whereas other alien movies from this time period went the other way, where, like, government might know, but they're coming to kill them.
Reminder, this is not a government organization.
Again, I know, but they are. Someone's paying for this, and
they're paying for it all.
Yeah, yeah. Half of these aliens work in the post office, so...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
No. I know at least two people who work in the post office. They're not funding a government program there.
Man, the second one, the bald Chinian still is the dumbest.
So bad.
I remember thinking that was so dumb as a kid, too.
It's so dumb, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Like, it's entertaining. It's not good. I'm so sorry you paid money for it.
Imagine being a little girl and watching that movie and not having the sex ed class and not...
Oh, that was the whole 90s. You were just like, I don't understand the appeal, but alright, go at.
Yeah. But I also like this bit too because we have the old-timey, like, classic Hard Knocks New York cops.
Yes, yep, hardened.
And they don't believe him, but there's a coroner who just happens to be there and believes him and tells him to meet up later.
I do like that we immediately have to throw in, like, oh, there's an underground organization full of morgue professionals.
Well, no, because she gets neuralized.
I know.
We see that.
I know, but, like, at the same time, like, this idea that, like, the conspiracy theories are coming from the people with the dead.
Yeah.
They've seen it all. The dead aliens can't be hidden from them.
I mean, my dad's seen a lot of interesting things when he worked for Life Alaska.
Well, yeah, but, like, again, it all ties into the conspiracy theory, because, like, as far as, like, who in New York would you want to put as, like, your lead person to, like, get your main character into the alienness? Who's gonna believe them other than, like, the weird guy with, like, living on the street with, like, the shopping cart full of trash from all 90s movies? Like, that one guy.
Oh, yeah.
That would be the only other person in the 90 movies that you could have picked. This is a much better solution than having that guy.
Yeah, true. But Kay now comes into the scene.
Yes.
I do like this a little bit because before he even shows up, there's that nice little, like, flash with the coroner.
Yep.
So we get it's a tight script and we know what just happened there. I think this is the part where he doesn't give her a story.
Yeah, he just, like, blinks her and leaves, like, rude. But also, like, I don't know, maybe she had a long day. Maybe it won't matter.
Yeah. But I also like that he's just moving at his own pace, coming in, disconnecting wires and stuff.
He does this every Wednesday.
Yeah. And it's just, it's an interesting setup to show how different they are as people in finally the same room together, where
yes,
Jay is still very much the comedic, or Tommy Lee Jones' character is the straight man.
He is the straight man, and I think it works really well because, for the most part, Tommy Lee Jones's face, I think, is associated with, like, Western style, like, straight, hard man.
Yeah, No Country for Old Men.
Exactly. Whereas, especially at this point, Dear Mr. Smith, comedy. Like, that's all anyone had seen him in up until this point.
Independence Day.
Yeah, I'm not
and
gonna...
he's not the comic relief in Independence Day. He's the serious one in that.
I know he is, but I'm not gonna say that was, like, people's go-to Will Smith memorial at the time.
Probably Fresh Prince still.
Yeah.
Yeah. But from here, they go on to a pawn shop.
Like you do.
Yeah, which, the other thing about this movie...
Would have been funnier if it was a mattress firm, but okay.
By today's standards, yes.
But, like, I understand, pawn store, let's go.
But what I like about this movie is that it's always moving forward and slowly revealing the world.
Yes.
So it's very much that kind of fish out of water story where we're experiencing the world as Jay's experiencing it.
I agree.
Something the sequels could hold on to, but...
No, and I think that is a huge part of why they flopped.
Yeah. But everything is always just a little bit off. I like Jeeves. He's fun.
I do too.
And there's all just gibberish weapon description for all of this stuff, because I like how Jay's like, I can handle this. I know this guy. And then Kay comes in. He's like, all right. He's like, whoa, what are you doing here, Kay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shoots his head off, which is great.
Hilarious.
But everyone around Kay takes Kay so seriously.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Which, by the way, the weapon that was destroyed earlier was a reverberating carbonizer with mutate capacity.
Fancy.
That's another thing I like about this, is that there's so much gibberish, but you can just go with it. You don't even have to know what it means.
And honestly, like, good on the franchise in general, because, yes, 90% of the weapons and even the aliens' names and languages, full gibberish, just, like, made up on the fly gibberish. However, they kept track of it because all of the, like, memorabilia is pristinely labeled. So, like, even the stuff you're like, I kind of remember that thing. I didn't realize it had a name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A reverberating carbonizer with mutate capacity, and as described by the handbook, it discharges an alien gas called carbon X11, which is a toxic fume and covers a 100-foot radius, vaporizing human flesh in 12 seconds.
I love the sort of nonsense facts that, like, come with... Like, yeah, someone thought through all of this.
It's like...
But not necessarily for the movie.
It's like Pokemon text where, like, what is it?
No, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, Drillbur can drill through dirt at, like, 40 miles an hour.
Which one's the one that's the same temperature as the sun?
Macargo.
Yeah, like, clearly no one actually thought this through. They just, like, made up a number. But, like... I'm here for that. That's the sort of nonsense that makes these sort of movies good.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And what's great about this part, too, is when Kay actually shoots Jeeb's head...
Yes.
Jay is immediately outside of his element. And even before that, when he does shoot him in the head, and then he reveals his wares.
Yes, yes.
Which, I like it, because originally we saw him, he's this cocky, confident policeman, detective.
Yeah. And, like, confident enough to, like, give unnecessary chase. Mm-hmm. And now he's definitely out of his element, but it's that Will Smith humor where, like, he's out of his element, but he refuses to admit it.
Yeah,
he's still, like, coming off as, like, I could do this. I just, wouldn't hurt if you showed it to me.
Yeah, which he get immediately after identifying it, neuralized.
Yes, I love that.
And we get to a Chinese restaurant, and he's told to be at this place in the morning with a very nice business card.
I love a business card.
Also, second movie in a row with a Chinese place. Hellraiser had a Chinese restaurant.
Okay, this was a 90s thing. Because, like, and it shouldn't be just, like, any Chinese restaurant. This needs to be the most 90s stereotype of a Chinese restaurant to have ever existed. There needs to be red and gold everywhere. There needs to be an unnecessary bamboo plant somewhere. The cash register needs to have a little lucky cat waving at you.
Yeah.
And, like, the only thing anyone in the restaurant, like, any of the main cast is eating looks to be, like, soupy orange chicken and noodles.
Yeah, lo mein.
Left a lot of lo mein. The orange chicken needs to be the wrong color, too. Like, it needs to be neon frickin' orange. And on top of that, none of the main cast should be able to properly hold chopsticks.
Why?
I don't know. But this idea from the 90s was so influential that me and my friends were obsessed with bad Chinese takeout. And it then, like, I think it permeated into American culture because now most small towns, at least in the lower Missouri and upper Arkansas bubble, you might have, like, some Mexican restaurants. They will be good. They will be delicious. But do you know where all of the families go to after church on Sunday?
No clue.
The bad Mexican restaurant where there's not a single thing that's not swimming in sauce. There's, like, 2 pieces of chicken and a ladle of sauce.
Interesting.
That fried rice has never seen a wok a day in its life. It came out of the steamer and they poured soy sauce on it.
Really passionate about this.
Because I love it's like a very nostalgic thing to me, and a lot of it is because of these style of action comedy movies. Where, like, no, this food is not good, but I am so ingrained that this is what, like, this was good. This is, like, something that you desired to go to. It's kind of like nasty pizza from, like, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, if that pizza existed in real life, that would be the disgustingest piece of pizza of your life.
After Home Alone, my brothers and I became obsessed with cheese pizza.
Yes! It's the same concept.
Okay.
Where, like, cheese pizza is the most boring pizza, and I love a cheese pizza. And I fully am aware that I've been influenced into liking cheese pizza. Because as a child, I wasn't a cheese pizza eater.
Huh.
I became a cheese pizza eater because of movies like Home Alone, like Ninja Turtles. I got really into shitty Chinese, and, like, I grew up in a large city. I had the option to eat good Chinese food, and I didn't want it.
You went to the 1-star on Yelp rating.
Yes! If Yelp had been a thing, that's where we would have been eating.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because of these sorts of movies, I'm convinced.
Yeah. But also, the fish tank's around in case you didn't notice.
That's true. Oh yeah, the Chinese place must have a fish tank. 2 fish in the fish tank at most.
Yes. So, from here, we cut back to the farm where an exterminator shows up, helping establish that he is a bug and he looks down on Earthlings.
Which is hilarious because, you know, he's a bug.
Yeah.
He looks down on humans who normally do not like bugs.
Yeah, it's the other way around in this one.
Haha, hilarious.
But I also like, because what's interesting is that this movie, just how fast paced it is for being an hour and 40-ish, almost 40 minutes.
No, if we're gonna be over that 90-minute mark, we gotta keep the ball rolling, and this movie does that.
No, exactly.
It keeps my low, short attention.
I mean, that's a good thing too, though, is because,
like, that's what a summer blockbuster needs, though, is it needs to be so entertaining, but also the plot needs to have no real bearing on what's happening, so that if I need to get up and make popcorn, or, like, do something, I can, but also, like, if I'm standing there talking to someone across the room, I need to zonk out and just be staring at this movie.
Yeah. No, exactly. But also, what this movie does well with the comedy too is because, like, when he's loading the saucer, it's obviously too big for the extermination vehicle.
Hilarious.
But it has the combination of verbal humor and physical humor.
Yes, with, like, these, like, overarching concept humors. So, like, the bug and the humans and him being like, ugh, stupid humans. I hate humans.
Well, also, he's dumb too because he came down to Earth on a crashed.
He did.
Which I think that's an interesting thing too, because there's this theory why we don't have as many crashes as we used to back in the day, and why we have, like, landings or they're just floating around our atmosphere, is because when aliens first arrived on Earth, they didn't know how to fly in our atmosphere, and so that's why they crashed.
I like this conspiracy an awful lot.
I also like how it ties in, or the idea that the bug is too dumb to actually fly or land a saucer properly.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. Also, I never made the correlation that he was a cockroach, or related to cockroaches. I thought he was like a centipede.
I mean, I understand because, I don't think most people, like, look at cockroaches under a microscope very often. And, like, he is cockroach-esque. He is not standard cockroach shape. He is much longer.
Yeah.
Like, most people are used to looking at them from, like, the top down as opposed to up at the cockroach. So, like, cockroach adjacent.
Okay.
You know? Like, they might have done their research, and that might be actually what a giant cockroach would look like. However, I am used to seeing the little almond oval-shaped cockroach.
Yeah.
Shape. Like, maybe a giant version of that, but, like, hissing cockroach in movies is kind of what I've gotten used to seeing, because that's usually what the stunt, like, prop people can use as hissing cockroaches. So, like, even though I know what cockroaches look like, and I have seen many a cockroach, in a movie, I'm expecting African hissing cockroaches.
Have you seen humanoid cockroaches?
I have not. Somehow, those never came to the zoo when I was there.
True. They're not real, but...
I am aware.
But now we're on to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel building, which is a cool location, and I like the setup because it hide in the open is basically what they're doing.
Yes.
And it's all in an odd place. Also, the elevator in this just takes them wherever.
I love this elevator because it feels the most realistic part of this whole thing. Like, once we hit into the main, like, office space, it feels very futuristic, very tech forward.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, it's 90s tech, but, you know, look past the computers, don't look directly at the phone.
Yeah.
But this elevator is the most cheap and jankety thing, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, yes and no, because it's jankety for those who accidentally stumble into the building kind of thing.
Yeah, but I also very much like to think that this isn't what the elevator was meant to do.
Hmm.
I very much subscribe to the concept of, like, this elevator has been needing repairs for the last, like, 20 years. Kind of Big Bang's elevator running joke gag theory. And they
I don't know.
They live on, like, the 5th floor, and, like, at no point in... I think, like, twice in the entire run of the show, the elevator worked. They all had to take the stairs the whole time.
I've never seen Big Bang.
It's hilarious. But, like, it's kind of like a running gag of the show of, like, okay, well, we could have fixed it and, like, done what we actually were going to do for, like, pedestrians who stumble in here, but instead, the elevator broke and we just kind of left it.
Okay. But also, there's circles all over this building, too.
Of course.
You could
pick apart the background information, not the plot.
You could do a drinking game like V for Vendetta with the V's. But also, when he does get into, like, the testing room,
yes,
it feels very crop circle-like because they're in the ceiling, the chairs are round, the tables are round.
Well, and part of that wasn't intentional. Part of that was just, like, that was what, quote-unquote, the future / like, hyper-technology looked like in the 90s.
No. I will actually get to that in a minute.
Okay. You're gonna argue with me on the idea of the space race, huh?
Well, before then, it's...
I know, but, like, this was the concept of taking pre-space race technology and fast-forwarding it, like Fred Flintstone to Jetsons.
If futurism actually had been
actually achievable. So a lot of latexy nonsense. A lot of things that should have squeaked a lot more than they really did. A lot of clear plastic.
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers is a great example.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like, that's for how stupid Austin Powers is, their design set team was on point.
Oh, yeah. It was... I love Austin Powers.
So good.
Actually, another good kind of time travel comedy.
Honestly, yeah.
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 But it is time for his test.
Mm-hmm.
I like that in this, everyone is looking down at Jay.
Mm-hmm.
And he also kind of calls them out for having a stick up their ass.
I agree. But at the same time, this is not government organization that, like, oversees the entire world. I feel like our, testing facility we should be picking the best of the best.
Scalping from the government.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Definitely, like, they aren't paying for their own coffee.
No, not at all. But also we get this a little bit more slapstick comedy where like they're handed out the test and there's no table immediately close to them to start tests to draw.
I do love that.
And I like that he does go down to, or he does grab the big table because
this is the best. Joke. Okay, no, that's the best joke in the whole movie is like moving that table. I love it. That's peak slapstick to me.
But also, there's another table that's just next
like
to
right next to it. Yeah,
that he could have picked up.
No, that's why I think the table gag is hilarious.
Thinking outside the box.
Yeah, always.
Or thinking outside the circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, there's a portrait in this room that I couldn't make out who it was.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's maybe a president, but
I honestly don't remember. I do know that, like, there is almost no background images and photos that aren't put there for some form of gag or reference, or they were someone who worked on the movie. But again, there's so many of them that, like, I don't know, throw a dart, you're gonna hit one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we get to the scene of, like, all of the, like, supposed aliens who are famous actors and actresses, a bunch of those are also, like, small gags and jips, including the text underneath their names.
Yeah, no, exactly. But now it's time for the field, or kind of field test, the range test.
I do love how they give almost no training.
No.
It's just like, here, go.
They're not supposed to have training. It's an aptitude test because these people are already supposed to have been trained.
Yeah.
Remember, they're the best of the best of the best, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad to see that training hasn't come far in modern day from the 90s. It is still something that we should work to strive as an entire society to be better at learning how to frickin' train somebody so that we don't accidentally point one of the most deadly small guns on the face of Earth directly at your boss.
You're right, that is...
Who then moves it slightly and then walks back in front of said gun.
Yeah.
We need better training.
But this isn't the training.
No, it's not.
This is the test.
We should have already had the training.
But what this also shows is that Jay's character is street smarts versus book smarts.
Which, for this sort of comedy, works better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I also, because, like, he kills the one thing that seems off to him, but everyone else doesn't see it as off.
I do like that, because it is playing more into that, like New York 90s stereotype of, like, only a hardened New Yorker would really understand, like, what's weird human behavior and what's an alien.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Thinking outside the circle.
Yes.
And then the agent asks the other one, "Are you sure about this?" And I love this little quip that he gives them, because here's why I like the comedy of this movie so much, is because it is dry as all hell, except for Jay.
Which works out so well, because Will Smith's humor style is very distinct, especially for 90s and early 2000s Will Smith's comedy. And it doesn't play well with other comedies. The one that is the exception to the rule is very dry, straight man humor. And that's where this works. Because Zed says something. He says, "You're everything we have to expect from years of government training." Oh boy.
Basically, they've been hiring the same kind of people for years and years and years at this point.
Yeah, which is hilarious.
Yeah. And so Jay's pulled us, well, they're taken away, but there's one more exam. An eye exam.
Hilarious.
And Jay's pulled aside, and he's told the history of the agency. Started in the mid-50s. Underfunded agency, started as a joke to make contact with extraterrestrials outside, or extraterrestrials, but surprise to them, it wasn't a joke for the ones that showed up on March 2nd, 1961.
Hilarious timing.
I did try finding if there was actual events.
I
couldn't find anything major.
No, but that's okay. The idea that, like, they just threw a dart and they're like, this date.
Well, they're all how they set it up is that they're political refugees. Earth is supposed to be the Switzerland of space, I guess.
Which is hilarious because, like, how would we become that? We have no space presence other than the moon.
Yeah. It's also classic alien, like the very classic tall grays.
Yes, which is, again, hilarious.
Yeah. And this is where we really get the development between these two characters of, like, their style of who they are.
Yes.
because we are introduced to the worm aliens, and
Yes.
Jay is once again thrown out of his element.
I love them. They're so goofy.
Solid puppeteering.
The best puppeteering. Each one puppeteered separately by a different person.
We see them CGI later.
Which, I like the puppet version.
Yeah, I do too, but the CGI is good too.
The CGI does a great job of capturing how spongy they appear as puppets, but, like, there is something really, like, almost Muppet wholesome-y as puppets that's just really hard to, like, reproduce. Kind of the same way as, like, there is something really nostalgic for, like, puppety animals versus CGI over real animals. And, like, that is where I think 2 and 3 kind of start to lose it, because they tended to be a little bit more heavy on the CGI, and we lost a lot of those practical and puppets.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we do still get some good, solid effects, like with Psycho Goreman, the Void. Yeah. Same director, but... I
mean, like, at no point do they straight up look bad. They just kind of lose... Like, there is a charm for the puppets not looking in the right spot, for them clearly bumping into each other a little bit. Like, they are well done. They are well puppeteered, but there is, like, a little bit of, like, unnaturalness that you just cannot reproduce when you have someone micromanaging every single move and blink and squish.
Like Howard the Duck.
Exactly like Howard the Duck.
Yeah. Also, another Spielberg movie.
Man has kind of the running reputation for these weird ones, huh?
Yeah. But another thing that I think this scene does well is its disorientation of you as a viewer. Because while they're walking through the hallway, it is clearly one hallway.
That's true.
That they just keep turning the corners on, so you don't know exactly where they're going. But what makes this work so much better is that you're focused in on the story, compared to, like, Deep Blue Sea 2, where it's the same hallway, they just change the color.
Light bulb, yeah. No, I also think that this feels a bit like a play on, like, big offices, especially, like, high-rise style offices. Where,
the sterility.
Well, and on top of that, like, how easy it is to just get lost in the sea of cubicles. Where, like, yeah, there's stuff happening, there's definitely people around, but, like, so it's not back rooms feely, but it's also, like, you have no clue where to go. Like, if your mentor suddenly was like, I gotta go to the bathroom, I'll see you here at 3, you would never make it. You would be so late.
Oh, yeah. No, it's... Unless you knew the layout. Kind of
exactly. Like, you already have to be in the know.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I played Donkey Kong 64 on stream, and...
Yes. Those old video games and their maps.
Unless you know where something's at, you are absolutely lost.
Yes, and those old games would do the thing where, like the horror nightmare of, like, potentially working in this sort of place where it's like, they show you a little clip and you need to go to that spot in whatever level or map you're in. And it's, like, the briefest little clip. It's zoomed in so far that, like, unless you've already played the game or you have the guide, you just spend your whole day looking for that one goddamn flower.
Yeah. I also think it was hilarious your husband was playing Ocarina of Time without using the map, and then bitching about being lost because he wasn't using the map.
Welcome to my life. Welcome to my life. This is why he's not allowed to play the new Zelda, because if he got lost in Ocarina of Time, can you imagine the man trying to play the new one?
Just use the goddamn map.
Yeah, he can't. He physically can't.
But like your husband,
yes,
Jay is given a choice now.
Honestly, Brian would do well in MIB. Not because of his physical abilities, not because of his suspect of aliens, because honestly, I think most of them would seem normal to him. I don't think he wouldn't catch a single alien, but he would never ever question being lost in this office.
No. And so he's told he can either become one of the elites or one of the nobodies, basically, at this point.
You know, when they phrased it that way, it made the choice real difficult. Especially for a cop who feels like he's not doing enough to save his city.
/ we have no history of him. We don't know his family.
As far as we know, Jay's entire life and personality is to be a cop.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean,
he doesn't exist before this movie.
No, that's the exact thing, is like there is nothing that...
But it kind of works because when he accepts... They're like, all right, we have to erase everything about you. You are going to be stripped down. No identity. You are now just a letter. You are now an agent.
He doesn't even know that it's just going to be a letter.
No, and like it doesn't bother him at all.
No.
They're like, they like make this big deal in the movie of like zooming in and showing them deleting his name on the screen, which I don't know how this is tied to anything, but I assume it's tied to all computers across the world, which in the 90s doesn't mean diddly squat. But like, there was still a lot of paper.
Yeah.
But like, they zoom in and like, Jay appears to be in the corner fidgeting with things. He's like touching stuff throughout the office instead of
we haven't gotten to the office yet. We're still...
Yeah, but like, Jay does not seem to care one bit that they're like, alright, say goodbye to your family, say goodbye to your friends. Like, Jay's like, cool. I don't have any of those.
Yeah.
How convenient.
Well, and that is a weird thing because like...
He doesn't even go say goodbye to his coworkers, nothing.
We do get a good long sequence of him having just thoughts sitting there and it just...
He doesn't seem to be thinking about anything though. Like, I know like, that's kind of what's implied is like, him, like, debating whether or not this is going to be worth it for his whole life. But, like, there's no montage. The music doesn't really change.
No.
There's no background for even the audience to go back and think about. So, like, as far as I'm aware, Jay's just in there singing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song in his head.
Something to his head. But, yeah. Well, and how they describe it is it's knowledge in exchange for existence, basically.
Sure. I mean... Seems like a pretty dope life.
Yeah, I mean...
Do I get to go around flashing little memory wipey things at people?
No, because if you do it without... If it's not unofficial MIB use, it's 50 years in orbit.
Hilarious.
Yes. Thank you, Handbook.
I don't think any of them have read the handbook.
No. The handbook was 100% written after this movie was made.
I think the handbook might have been written after like 2 and 3, and maybe the TV show.
No, because it's part of the official Men in Black screenplay book.
Perfect. Which means 100% not a single person in this office has ever bothered to reference their handbook.
Nope. But also the scene is important in like setting up the world of Men in Black.
It is, yeah.
Is because the reason the populace isn't told about aliens is because humans are stupid.
Okay, but this...
And panicky creatures.
Okay, but this little, like, segment where they're sitting in the park talking about, like, why the MIB is what it is and what it means to be an agent, this is some heavy shit.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some, like, hard truths being dropped in this movie, and then they immediately gloss over it to go do silly stuff, and I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah. It's like the one somber moment in this movie.
It really is, which is hilarious, because we haven't even gotten to the part where the world is in danger yet.
Scratch that. There's a little somber moment in the beginning where the older agent's like, do you ever just look up at the stars anymore?
Okay, the older agent, if you think about it hard, very sad.
Mm-hmm.
But they spend so little time on that man that you almost forget that that's the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, doesn't matter. Don't care about him.
Also, there's about 1,500 aliens on the planet at any given time, which isn't a lot.
It's not, but also implies that, like, a solid 80% are living in New York.
I think the original intent was to be like, the line was 1,500 aliens in New York.
Which would make so much more sense.
Yeah, and why there's some in Mexico too, because like...
Well, also, the thing that's, like, definitely confusing is because, yeah, we've got some in Mexico, we've got some in Kansas, intentional or not, and then, like, in the background on one of the, like, light-up boards of, like, who's an alien and who's not, is, Jay's teacher, where he's like, my teacher was an alien, and like her picture is up there, and it clearly states underneath it that she's from Philadelphia, because that's where the Fresh Prince was born and raised and spent most of his days.
Yes.
And like, it says Philadelphia, but then his birth certificate says New York. So I have questions about the life and times of Jay the Fresh Prince.
So I don't know how the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air ends. Would he
goes, I think he goes, I honestly don't remember how it ends. I don't know if I ever watched the ending of The Fresh Prince.
What if Jay is just the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
That would be hilarious.
I don't think they have the same first name.
No,
though.
It's definitely not him, because they, like, you can't be born and raised in...
He just plays Will Smith.
Yeah, it's just a reference to Will Smith, because like they have his birth certificate on the screen at one point, and it clearly states that Jay was born in New York. And it's a bit hard to be born, raised, and a cop in New York if you spent most of your days somewhere else.
In Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But from here, we get a quick cut of the bug coming in. Again,
Yes.
having to bring us back to that, hey, there's something else coming in that these two don't know of. It's the,
I do like how this supposedly world-ending problem, the movie's very casual about.
yeah.
Like, it's kind of a non-issue until, like, almost the end of the movie.
It's like Frank in the Attic in Hellraiser, where it's the Hitchcock bomb theory that we're supposed to know that there's danger coming, but our two main characters don't know.
And it is definitely, like, a style of movie writing that has kind of gone out of fashion more recently, where, like, it's now much more popular to have the audience experience everything with the characters, especially for, like, a suspense or an action movie. But I kind of like the, like, overview third-person knowledge, because then it gives me more reason to stick around and be invested in, honestly, what would be a very boring story about this man who has no past and no friends and family becoming an agent with no past, no friends, or family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But also, a couple things. If you pay close attention, this part, it's winter time. Because
I had forgotten about that.
Yeah, the director brought up that they had to do this part post-credit or after principal photography, and so the trees are all dead.
But that kind of works, not only because it looks much cooler as far as, like, evilness with dead trees, but also it does kind of sort of imply that Jay has been there long enough when, like, the rest of the stuff rolls around, that by the end of the movie, when he's like, I'm promoting you to my position, and he's like, I haven't done this long enough, sir. It does imply that, like, maybe Jay's just a little dumb, because he's had a whole year to train.
No, I'll...
Yeah, I know. And I know, like, writing-wise it doesn't work, but I do appreciate the idea that, like...
It doesn't match with any of the dialogue set in the movie.
I know it doesn't. But I wish.
But also, why I wanted to bring up the scene a little bit too is if you look closely at the van, there's a chunk of the corner.
You're right.
Gouged out of it where they push the saucer right hard.
Yeah, you're right.
But Jay now returns to headquarters confident, but is very quickly put in his place again. He's like, here's how it's going to be from now on. He's like, that's good, sport.
Yeah, have fun.
Just so you know nothing now.
Yeah.
You thought you knew something, but now you know nothing.
I do like the underdogness of Jay, where like I like the entire running joke really throughout the movie is like Jay is so competent that he doesn't need training. He just gets like hired the first day pretty much. He gets like 24 hours to think about his choice and then is like, all right, here's your badge. Here's your sunglasses.
Pretty much. Well, and I mean, he's introduced to all these aliens at one time.
I love that. And I love how they do it kind of standard office style where like you're just walking through and you're like, that's Mike, he's on IT. And that's Jerry over there in the corner. He does coffee. Yeah.
Well, also from a little cameo, one of the little aliens is Mini-Me from Austin Powers.
Very delightful.
Yeah.
Man's been in everything, really. More stuff than I thought.
Oh, no, he's
his acting list is longer than I assumed it could be.
Yeah. I think he was one of the Ewoks in Star Wars 2 or something. Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, same with like Warwick Davis, who's been in a lot more than people think.
Yeah, like once you start like going through, you're like, yeah, of course he is. And then like, but like, don't ask for me off the top of my head. I couldn't tell you.
But also, much like the original uncut Star Wars.
Yeah.
This movie originally had just this scene only had practical aliens.
Which, I like practical aliens. I like the mix, though, for Men in Black. I think it adds to the, like, texture and, like, the feeling of Men in Black. Of having, like, this CGI plus puppetry.
Exactly. They had to bring them in to make it feel livelier, is the thing. But here's where we actually learn all about the organization, that they're self-funded through alien tech, so they're not attached to the government at all.
Which is what they say, but that coffee looks suspiciously like government coffee. It's
just office place coffee.
I feel like alien money can afford better coffee even in the 90s.
True, probably.
Look at the gun selection.
No, here's what it is. They're a bunch of old-ass agents.
That's it. And that's how they like their coffee.
Yeah, it's the coffee that they've been drinking since day one.
You know what? You are 100% correct.
Yeah, exactly.
You are completely correct. I apologize for my theory.
It was a good one.
It was, but like, you're right. They like gas station shitty coffee.
Oh, yeah, no, by the way, by the second one, things have changed.
Oh, that one updated too much.
Oh, there's
That's
like,
the problem.
There's Burger King, there's Sprint, there's all kinds of fucking stores in this area now.
There's too much in the next one.
They did make it more like a terminal because I do want to talk about this part a little bit, the architecture here.
Mm-hmm.
Designed around the 60s idea of futurism.
Yes,
I
can see it.
Production designer Bo Welch, who previously had been the production designer on Beetlejuice,
I love it.
Lost Boys,
Very good.
Ghostbusters 2.
I can see that 100%.
Edward Scissorhands.
Yes.
And Batman Returns.
Hell yeah, Batman Returns!
As well as a film we reviewed a couple years ago, The Birdcage.
You know what? Okay.
Yeah.
They are all very diverse. They are all very different. But however, there's a hint. There's a flavor amongst them all.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so this area is supposed to be kind of like a terminal for the alien Ellis Island, as they described it.
Yes, they nailed that 100%.
Yeah, whose interiors were inspired by Eero Saarinen, who, for those who don't know architecture, he did the TWA terminal at JFK, as well as the St. Louis Arch.
Yes, and if you haven't managed to actually visit either of those two, I want you to throw yourself back to the 90s, and I want you to imagine a bank. And a lot of that architecture was based around this same kind of idea where very tall, very concrete, a lot of glass and shiny.
Mm-hmm. Chrome.
So much chrome. So much polishing.
Yeah.
The poor janitors of the 90s had it rough.
Even the chairs from the testing room were designed after Saarinen's chairs.
Yeah, which a little bit of, like, a nod to continuation, but also just really re-emphasize that, like, the future. Kind of like how if, like, anyone nowadays puts eames in something, it's seen as, like, oh, so kind of fancy, despite that chair being worth a lot of money.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, it's kind of the same idea, where, like, his furniture, when it came out, no one was really buying it to have, but when you saw it, you knew this was meant to be, like, future, but also uncomfortable.
Exactly, which is what I feel a lot of, like, that era of furniture design was just, like, it makes me think of, like, fashion, like the runway shows you see, where it's like...
It's very similar concept of, like...
It's art.
No, okay. The 90s concept of, like, over-the-top architecture and furniture especially very much was, like, this is where architecture is an art really took its root, and is something that we are still, as a, like, organization, trying to get past this, like, over-artness of it, because, like, yes, there is an art to it, but it needs to be functional, people, because that's why in the 90s everything was chrome, and that's why all the malls are dead.
And that's why Atari had wood paneling on it.
That, and also partially because Japan's version of the future looked very different than America's.
Well, all of our TVs had, like, wood paneling. The wood paneling for America was very much like, this is back to nature kind of shit. Or this is traditional.
It was meant to feel homey.
Yeah, fancy.
And they'd put that shit on everything. Your TV, your gaming system, your car. I had one of those. I shouldn't say I didn't have one. My parents, for a very brief time, had one of those cars, and it was my favorite car we ever owned, despite the blue van of doom.
Okay.
It was always flaking.
But also, this was inspired by 1964's New York's World Fair and its optimism of the future, as well as space travel, and it had circles everywhere.
Yes.
And here's why there's so many layers of circles, too. Even the Guggenheim.
Yeah.
Not just the Guggenheim.
Yeah.
The sidewalk around the Guggenheim has circles.
Yes, because it was thought to be a very natural shape. This was pre the, like, obsession with the golden ratio swirl, the swizzle, which now has moved away. Like, we're no longer obsessed with the swizzle. We're now obsessed with, like, the most efficient function, which, unfortunately, despite having proof otherwise, is currently right angles. Hopefully in the future we get rid of those, because I think they're ugly. But, you know, every phase has its own thing, and we are currently in the circles phase in this movie.
Yes. But one little coincidence, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidence.
Yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
who coincidentally died in September in 1961?
I don't remember who.
Eero Saarinen, which is the same year the aliens made contact in the movie.
Suspicious.
Very suspicious.
Suspicious!
Because they made contact in March. So did Saarinen just go home like Elvis?
Well, okay, so you've brought up Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about how the music in this is all done by
Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman. Thank you. His name does not roll off my tongue. With the exception of 2 songs. One, sung by, of course, Will Smith, because he starred in this movie, and in the 90s, Will Smith sang all of the songs, minus, like, his...
Or had to do one tie-in song.
He had one tie-in song for, like, all of his Goofy movies. There is one other exception. And do you remember what the other exception to this is in the movie? There's one other artist.
It's some Elvis song.
It is another Elvis song!
Because I know it because they bring it up in the car where he's like, don't you have anything new? Elvis is dead. He's like, nope, he just went home.
Yeah, it's Promised Land by Elvis.
Okay. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I don't know Elvis, so.
I only know Elvis because at one point a childhood best friend loved Elvis for a brief moment and then moved on to Backstreet Boys very quickly.
All right.
But I am a huge lover of this nonsense conspiracy theory of Elvis have been an alien the whole time and had just simply been reunited with the mothership. That is my favorite nonsense, and I think they play that in so subtly. But that being the only other song other than Will Smith himself, mwah, beautiful.
Okay, that makes sense.
Especially if you only listen to this on soundtrack, because they did release this, not once, but twice. Just the soundtrack to this movie.
To Men in Black?
Yes, to just the first one. The first one,
Huh.
first Men in Black, like all movies in the 90s, came out kind of around the same time the DVD came out, which was pretty standard. But then they re-released it again, not even before the second movie, like just for shits and giggles, they re-released it, and that one came with a pair of sunglasses from Ray-Ban.
Interesting.
Hilarious.
Fun fact, actually, not fun fact. I actually re-listened to the song because of this.
Yes.
The Will Smith Men in Black song is actually pretty good.
It's pretty good.
It's so much, and then I went back and re-listened to his Wild Wild West, and the reason the Wild Wild West sucks, that one song sucks so much, is because it's just singing about the movie itself instead of like the agency around it and stuff.
100%.
Also, because I was looking through Spotify, brought up the very mostly poorly aged album, Punk Goes Crunk.
I had forgotten about that one.
Because Forever the Sickest Kid covered Men in Black on it.
You were right. I had forgotten about that one. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome, elder millennial.
Ugh, that was buried deep.
I forgot about it too. But now we're introduced to the Alien Communication Board, or the big monitoring board controlled by Yup and Bob.
Yes. I love how this is meant to be a very futuristic idea of what, like, this organization would look like if they had all of the advanced money and tech of aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And all it really looks like to me nowadays is a NASA, like, view when they, like, are showing off, like, hey, we're about to, like, land on something or launch something.
That's probably what it was supposed to be, because remember...
I know, because this also is, like, this was prime time to be a big NASA fan, too. Like, if you were a nerdy kid, NASA camp was high on your list of wants.
Yeah. But this is where we get, like, the cameo of, my teacher, no, she was actually from Jupiter.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Sylvester Stallone's in there. Yeah, there's...
Like, some of the actors that they picked to be on that board do, like, have held up as far as, like, an average modern audience would be able to pick them out pretty quickly and be like, oh, tee-hee, yes, that's funny. Some of them, they were kind of big names in the day, but for the most part, they didn't hold out.
Yeah, there's Dane DeVito.
That man, 100%.
Newt Gingrich, who I don't know who that is. George Lucas.
George Lucas is probably honored to be on the list.
Isaac Mizrahi.
Like, these people are ones that, like, if you saw the movies that they're in, you would be like, yeah, okay, I remember that now. But they weren't. They're not still big names.
I think it was a lot of the producers who were in on it.
There were.
Yeah, so just a couple of them.
Yeah, I do find Danny DeVito being on the list just a little funny.
Oh yeah, I mean he is a very interesting shaped person.
I also think that just like judging by his humor standard from seeing interviews and stuff, I do think that would be something that would tickle his funny bone.
Yeah, I mean, man's crawled naked out of a couch.
That is true. Man, that show did a lot of things.
Yes. But now it is time to put on the last suit you will ever wear.
Which is kind of a gross thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. The suit gets gross.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially if you don't wash them.
Ooh, how do you even get bug slime out of a 3-piece suit?
Oh, they,
Or I guess it's a 2-piece suit.
Well, the handbook, they're supposed to have, 3 suits at any given time.
You might need more than that, depending on how much Will Smith handles small children in this movie.
I don't want to talk about small children. But, goodbye, James. Hello, Jay.
Hilarious. I love it. What a good nickname.
Yeah. I like that all the people who work here just, this person just disappears.
I do like that instead of giving them, a proper nickname, or even just, a random letter.
Mm-hmm.
It's just their first name letter, which doesn't feel that sneaky.
No, not at all. But the handbook does state agents who have left behind family and friends are allotted free use of the neuralizer to attend family and high school reunions.
Oh, just high school reunions, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, and family reunions.
Yeah.
Not Christmas or anything like that, huh?
Nope, just family reunions to...
Well, you better hope you're part of a family that has family reunions, though, huh?
Yeah.
You tell him dinner time.
But also, there's this great opening monologue that I ripped off from the intro to this that Zed is such a great hype man for, the Men in Black of,
Yeah.
You're gonna be a spook man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But from here we cut on to Rosenberg Jewelry, where the bug dude is on reconnaissance.
This man, playing an alien who doesn't know how to wear a human skin, is the greatest acting of our generation. He doesn't know what to do with his arms. He barely knows what to do with his face. It's great.
Yeah, I think Sonnenfeld thought that it was an homage to Dr. Strangelove.
I can kind of see it. I feel like this is a play all on its own.
Yeah,
it's so over the top.
Yeah, he said he thought it was because there's one scene where he kind of raises his hand like a Nazi salute, but he puts it down real quick. But Tommy Lee Jones is just it's probably just him doing. It's just slapstick comedy.
I completely agree. I don't think it was that level of intentional.
Yeah. Also, by the way, should we bring up that I forgot to bring up that Jay screws up on day one, just
yes, he does.
knocking everything out, random science lab in the middle of
fantastic.
Yeah. But now he's on to his first assignment, where we get their first encounter with aliens on the run. Mm-hmm. We're introduced to the Ford POS.
Yeah.
Which, so rigid and cheesy, and it feels like an old car a government person would drive.
It really does.
Or a secret agency would drive.
It's perfect.
Because they're not a government.
Well,
yes. They might have been government at that point when they bought the car.
Probably, and why would you get rid of a good thing?
Because remember, they said it started off as an underfunded government agency.
Which, they left behind, and that's where X-Files picks up.
Yeah, there's been a lot of... I've seen people relate this movie to X-Files.
I would love to think that despite the dates and times not working out, X-Files is the precursor to Men in Black. They were pre-funding, and Men in Black is post-funding. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, well, even then the X-Files is... The X-Files is still underfunded because
they're so underfunded.
There's 2 of them, and one of them's been delegated to some back corner room.
They not even a back corner room. At one point, he's straight up in a boiler closet.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Hilarious.
But also, this is one part I don't like of the movie, the cheesy fast forward.
Yeah, okay. It never looked good.
No.
But now that it's so old, it kind of now feels on purpose as opposed to just being bad.
I don't know.
It's still not good. It could have been done better, but I don't hate it.
It makes me think of in older movies where they speed up the fight scenes to make it look like it's more
faster.
action-packed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It has a charm. Again, like, I think it adds to the Men in Black flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, no one else was dumb enough to do this. Like, at all. Fast Furious didn't need to, like, do this. None of the other spy movies did this.
Well, Fast and the Furious elongated the time.
Yeah, which honestly worked better.
Yeah, no, exactly. You gotta see everything.
You did. And also, like, those races were real short.
Yeah.
So, like, no one else tried this technique, and it looked bad, but it kind of played over once we got to the animated series, just because, like, it's not like they necessarily intentionally did it, it's just, like, there's only so much budget for a WB Kids animated TV show about Men in Black.
I don't think I ever watched the kids show.
It wasn't great.
I wouldn't expect it to.
But also it has that, like, old 90s cartoon crust that is a little fun.
The old cartoons that we thought were American but were actually animated by Japanese studios.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that flavor.
Yes. Phil's having us watch Cyber 9, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys should watch Code Lyoko at some point.
I brought that up. I've
the
watched
forehead.
all of
There's
it.
so much forehead.
That was actually a French studio who did that.
It was. I know. That's why there's so much forehead.
Hey, you insulted the French this time.
I did. I apologize. But also that show was weird, guys.
Yeah. But now we are off to a diner with the tall man before.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Ivan gets a break, which is a nice little
good
joke.
Delightful.
Again, physical paired with the wording.
Yes, it is well balanced.
But we get a little bit that the jeweler guy is in danger, which the good guy and the bad guy haven't even met in this movie yet.
The bad guy's barely in this movie.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, really,
it's
until
got that Ghostbusters thing where, like, the actual turmoil of the movie is very small.
Yeah, it is very much about the human characters with, hey, there's kind of alien stuff happening in the background here.
Hey, there is a world domination happening. We should do something about that.
Yeah. Also, like, originally when I was a kid, I didn't understand why he had bugs on him. And now I know it's the cockroaches from the barn that he's...
summoning.
Yeah, and just still leaves there after he kills them?
Yeah, okay. A lot of the logic in this movie was aimed at just gross for gross sake, which... kind of how you looped in teenage boys back in the day. Gross for gross sake was like half the toys collection, was like 90% of the movies. So, could you make an inference on why the cockroaches are attracted to the giant cockroach? Sure. The reason, though, is because gross.
I don't think they're attracted to them. I think he just saw them in the barn and he started picking them up and like, you're my babies now.
That's some aggressive cockroaches. This bar, that's nasty.
Yeah.
That real nasty.
Yeah, so dudes are dead. We clearly see Orion on the cat's collar for a second.
I do like that we established that it's there, because it is fairly vague and also completely forgotten for pretty much the rest of the movie.
Nope, exactly. And so we cut to the runaway aliens. I like that they're both smooth talkers in their own way.
I agree.
Jay is very much new school, and Kay is very much moves at his own pace, so that way people can't keep up with him.
Exactly.
But we learn, and what's cool about the scene too is maybe not cool, but we learn about the world through Kay, while Jay provides the comic relief in the back as the baby squid is born.
Hilarious scene in general.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, so this is where the comedy comes in again, is after all of that, when they're back in the car, and Kay says, anything about that seem unusual to you?
Yeah, that's very funny.
Very funny. Just
very funny.
Because, like, Jay gives him this look, and we're supposed to think it's weird, but for Kay, it's every single day for him.
This is, like, that's probably his most normal day this week.
Yeah, because he brings up that, hey, there's, why would they risk this why would they risk a space jump when she's pregnant?
Yes.
Yeah. And so they're going to go to the hot sheets for, leads.
Yes.
Which... tabloids.
I love it.
Which, let me read you some of the articles on this.
Please. This is the best part.
Medical miracle. Pope's a father.
Wow.
The White House was originally blue.
Okay, if that ran today, I think people would buy it.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing these when I was a kid and loving them.
Oh, same.
Baby born pregnant.
That's amazing.
Man eats own house.
That, honestly, probably on TLC.
Yeah. NASA releases new evidence of contact with aliens since 1962, which is a nice nod to the year after.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And while there is no major UFO encounters, what is interesting why they chose 1962 is because one of the first major credible UFO encounters, probably also why they chose 1961 for first contact, was the infamous case of 1961's Betty and Barney Hill. Which
have become their own giant phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Because for the most part, a lot of alien encounters after Roswell were around government sites.
Yes.
This was one of the first ones where it was to civilians.
And also one of the first ones to catch the public's attention in a massive way.
Yes. And also, like, Betty's story never changed.
No. Died believing it.
Barney didn't want to talk about it at all.
No. Which, I mean, helped. Especially if you were in the tinfoil hat community. Like, it all added up.
Well, also, they were a mixed race couple in the 60s when it wasn't legal.
This is true.
Yeah. So, yeah, we won't go into that. That's another rabbit hole. But from here, we get cut back to the farm because they get one of the lead that they're following is Alien War, My Husband Has a Suit or something.
Hilarious. I love it.
Yes. And they're off to the farm. There's so much little details here. Yes. So what Jay is ready to go and Kay is give her time to get the wrong impression.
Yeah.
Which, again, is back to the MIB misleading and confusing their targets.
Yes.
And just letting them in. Because that's another thing of the lore.
That's very true.
Just like being very convincing and having them come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because she doesn't even fight them. No, I don't want anything to do with you guys. You guys are going to make fun of me.
Yeah. Just, no real hard problems. Which all then ties in with the conspiracy theory nonsense of like why everything's so hush-hush, why there's no physical evidence. It's like just so convincing.
Mm-hmm. Also the fun line that we at the FBI don't have a sense of humor.
That is hilarious.
Again, poking fun at the other agencies, even though, in a way, he doesn't really have a sense of humor himself.
No, he's the driest character in this entire movie.
Yeah. But yeah, Edgar's suit's repeated again, which, again, back to the lore of MIB. Such an old-timey house. This house is so gaudy, especially going from, so great. Men in Black headquarters to here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's funny. I also like how the way she's rambling, she's going through water like Bubba Gump.
Yeah.
Or like there's 20 different types of water and like they're bored by her. And so I love it like they get to that point where she's just kind of like in that loop. And Kay's like, well, all right, time to vaporize her or zappy zap. Which again, he gets the swamp gas story, which again, classic UFO excuse.
I love a swamp gas story.
And then he gives the weak ass story, and Jay goes overboard on trying to
fill in a story.
Yeah, because Kay is just like, I'm here to do a job. I'm here to get out of here. But here's why I like this with Jay is it shows he is more human oriented.
I agree. I agree. He hasn't been hardened like Kay. I also think this is kind of showing how Jay has a lot more imagination than Kay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at some point back in the day, Kay had this bright and shiny like optimism that Jay has, but like Jay hasn't seen it all yet. Mm-hmm. So Jay's like, I'm gonna think up a wild story that'll explain all this. And Kay's like, I've seen it all. It's all wild. Swamp gas.
Yeah. No, but Jay's also actively trying to improve her life too, which is great.
Yeah. No, he's not like uncaring. Mm-hmm. He just like knows there's nothing like the truth will be much crazier than swamp gas.
Yeah. Also, I like that this movie implies that everyone in the extraterrestrial world also hates bugs, and there's speciesism.
I do think that's hilarious because that idea like continued on and still plays into like the running joke of like either certain bugs or all bugs being like alien to an extent, i.e. Lilo and Stitch and the mosquitoes. Hilarious gag. Similar concept.
I don't remember that.
In Lilo and Stitch, the reason they can't nuke the Earth is because Earth is a protected planet for the endangered mosquito population.
Oh, right. Yeah, I vaguely remember that now.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a long time.
It's okay.
But now we're on to the morgue, and who do we see again but Laurel, the mortician from like 30 minutes ago.
Who you forgot about.
Yeah, well...
The entire audience remembers her vaguely.
Until rewatching, because that's when I'm like, oh wait, she's in this movie a lot earlier.
She is, but like, this movie is... Everything happens. There's always something going on.
Mm-hmm.
So unless someone is always in frame, you forget that there's more than 2 main characters in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, also, the way they introduce themselves, I forgot to bring up. So when they first show up at the house, Kay introduces Jay as Dr. Black, or Mr. Black.
Yes.
And in this scene, he introduces him as Dr. White, and they still give him the look of like, really?
Which, I mean, is another play on the whole Mr. White, Mr. Black, like, hilarious little skit that has continued to this day.
And here's why I think the writing is even better.
Mm-hmm.
So Kay introduces himself as a version of a man. So Mannheim, Dr. Leo Manville.
Yes.
Which shows he is the man.
And also not an alien.
Yeah, hot shit.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Which also he doesn't introduce himself to his first encounter with Jay either.
That's true.
Yeah. Which the scene there's that so they go to examine the body and they're just flirting over the dead body, which is
a little weird.
Very
a little weird. But also like if you're around dead bodies all day and you got nothing better to do.
Yeah. Well, Jay's also not good at faking it either.
No, Jay is the worst at faking it, in fact.
Yeah. But yeah, like, he can't even, like, pretend to be a doctor. Like, I wonder what Kay would have done in his situation.
A lot more. The man's much better bullshitter than Jay.
And I'm sure Kay's one of those guys who would have studied the body to be like, okay, I'm going to have to interview morgue workers all the time. I got to know anatomy.
I was going to say, like, aliens are clearly dying.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's gonna find him, he's had to have done this at least one other time.
Oh, I'll get into that in just a second.
Okay, thank you.
So, the face is actually not a face. There's a little man inside.
Surprise! I do like this alien setup. This is hilarious.
Special effects wise, solid projection and puppeteering.
I agree. It looks good.
Because there's 2 puppets.
Yes.
There's a tiny one for the main shots, and then all the close-up shots, it's like this 9-foot puppet.
Yeah, it works. It looks great.
Yeah, very well. And then we get the hint to prevent war. The galaxy is on Orion's belt. Shit has hit the fan finally for our main 2.
And we are how far into this movie?
I think we're about like 40, almost 50 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. But, so here's the part. So she's like, I knew it. He's not an alien. It's like, no shit. You notice that he didn't have organs. Like, you didn't do any other examinations? Like,
I do appreciate that this person was so weirded out by, like, 2 instances that they found on the body that they just stopped examining. Yeah. They were like, nope, not touching it. I don't want anything to do with it. I ain't about that life.
No, not
But
at
you know
all.
what? Good on you. You work in a morgue. You gotta be careful about that stuff. That's where the spookies are. Yeah. You gotta be aware of the spookies.
Now you gotta be worried about ghosts or aliens.
Honestly, though, this is not the spooky that she thought she was signing up for when she decided to work in the morgue.
No, she. This is the kind of spooky she was looking for. The way she's into everything, because even Jay says she has that kind of the whole Queen of the Dead vibe.
That's true. This is one of my small pet peeves of just Men in Black in the series, the overarching thing. They set her character up so well to fit into the Men in Black society in some way. And, like, from here until the rest of the movie, they build on her, they give her a little bit more attitude, they give her a little bit more interest, and then they throw her off a cliff for 2 and 3. They're just like, bye!
Yeah.
We don't need you!
I don't know, it could have been, like, scheduling stuff. And
I know, but, like, we set up this re-encounter, and, like, don't even acknowledge it after this point.
Again, probably just wrote 1 movie, not expecting it to be as good as it was.
I agree that this was before the assumption that we should immediately start on 2, 3, 4, and 5 before we've even released 1. We will merchandise, we will, promote the hell out of it, but we will wait to make sure we make a lot of money before we really start going hard on 2 and 3.
Yes. So this is the part where I have some questions about encounters in the past.
Okay.
So how many times Laurel's been neuralized? Because Jay brings up, like, why do you keep doing that to her? Like, aren't you going to give her brain damage? And his response is, never hurt her before.
Rude.
So Kay's done this to her multiple times, which is why, like, in the hallway, I don't think he gave her a story. I don't remember him giving her a story.
I don't think he did.
Like, he just shows up. Oh, it's you again. Boop. Here's another one for good measure.
Yeah, seriously.
But now they're back outside to discuss plans. I love the cleanup van that just, like, immediately shows up and just, like, super cheesy tech on top of the car. It looks so bad.
Yeah.
And from here we cut to the bug dude freaking out because he can't open the container that the jeweler had before.
Hilarious. I love it.
But he does open it and he gets pissed.
Yeah.
Bugs are even kind of dumb here.
I do like that there is some level of, like, play with this bad guy. It feels very almost Batman-esque as far as, like, he is going to end the Earth. He is very powerful. He's also kind of dumb.
Yeah. It's Dragon Ball Z-esque too, where it's like, Boo's very powerful, but kind of dumb.
He's kind of dumb.
Yeah, exactly. But back at HQ, we finally get on to Kay that he's not so detached. He's kind of creepy using his advanced technology to enhance and spy on the woman he left behind.
I mean, it's meant to be sweet. Kind of creepy, but it's meant to be sweet.
Yeah. I mean, Jay, this is where, like, they're breaking his facade a little bit, which it's needed. It
is needed because otherwise this man might as well be dead.
Well, it's also, it's an inkling of him missing the outside world. Yes,
because we do need to set up the end of the movie.
Yes, because we're about to set that up.
Yeah.
Because, oh no, there's an alien, all the aliens are fleeing because the Arquillians are here.
Ooh,
Part of this, people were confused when it first came out because it's also a remnant of the original plot that had 3 warring nations and Earth was going to be like their battleground.
Yeah, luckily, not a lot of people were really into the comic, so it wasn't the worst thing that this was a switcheroo.
No. It's fine. It's going to build up real quickly from here.
And honestly, doesn't matter.
No.
In the long run, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So it's time to equip up. We get the Series 4 Deatomizer and the Noisy Cricket.
Hilarious. I love it. I love the tininess.
Which, once again, referring to the official handbook, the Noisy Cricket is a lightweight 12-shot handgun that releases a +P+ 110 grain JHP bullet.
Sure.
That travels at 8,932 feet per second.
That's not possible, but I love it.
Now, the Deatomizer,
tell me more,
is an all-in-one triple-barrel shotgun that holds 12 shells but has 5 levels. Squirt gun.
Okay.
Slingshot.
I don't think they ever use that one.
BB gun.
Yeah.
Bazooka.
They use that one.
And atomic machine gun.
Of course. All of them should have that level.
But it's also a good way to, like, kind of tease that he's still throwing him through the ropes. He wants the big shiny weapons, but he's like, you can't handle that until you handle this little one.
Yeah.
But bad dude's now at Rosenberg's going through it like a space bug in a china shop.
Yeah, that's true.
I also enjoy, the more you watch Edgar, the worse and worse his skin looks, like it's rotting off of him.
It looks soupy. It looks real floppy.
Yeah. Which, I do have questions about, like, this place,
socks.
too. I had wet socks yesterday.
I'm so sorry. That's the worst.
Tiny humans.
I understand.
Yeah.
I stayed home. Haha.
Yeah. But, so, there's so many cat collars.
There is a lot of cat collars.
Are all of these galaxies?
It is implied that it is a maybe.
Could be.
Could be.
But I think the bug's too dumb to realize.
I would agree with you. I also think that while the writing in this is clever, and whoever was in charge of props did a good job of filling in with lots of details, the story portion of the writing did not.
No.
So, while that is a fun idea, I'm pretty sure the galaxy marble bit wasn't as fleshed out even while filming, as they thought, because there was a lot of rewrite that happened kind of last minute. It's just
the MacGuffin for this movie.
100%.
Yeah. Which, honestly, why does the noisy cricket even make the cricket noise? Is it supposed to be funny, or is it something I'm missing?
Nope, just funny.
Okay.
It was marketed as a toy, so I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they went, tee-hee, that'd be funny. And also we could add that to the toy.
True.
So I have no proof of that. However, I do know they started making toys before they finished the movie. So, like, someone thought about that.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like Jay being given the noisy cricket is Kay's payback for him snooping in on him.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Just
100%.
It's a nice little subtle way of working it into the story.
I agree.
But I also like this because he's like, do not ever fire your weapon in public. He's like, but he was getting away. You know, there's a threat.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's always a threat, man. Like, this is part of the job.
This is literally a Thursday. Calm down.
Yeah. Which we cut back to HQ where we see the worms leaving with Marlboros and Statue of Liberty souvenirs, which...
I love that, though.
It's a good little comedic relief from kind of like the seriousness that just happened between Kay and Jay.
Yes.
And then... It's also just to show that, hey, everyone is bailing.
Even the dumb worms.
Yes. And now we cut back to the streets. There's a couple parts here, because this is where it's going to pick up.
Yeah, it goes fast from here on out.
The bug dude is just going around to random people. Where do you keep the dead?
Great question, sir.
Yeah. And even, like, when we cut back to the cleanup, Jay is even falling back on the swamp gas story.
Because it works. Why not?
Yeah. And now they have to go find an expert on intergalactic politics, which, again, we have a subversion of Jay's expectations because, here's what's great, is because we're supposed to expect what an alien looks like.
That's true. And we've seen a few now, so...
And it turns out to be the pug.
I love this pug. I have mixed feelings, though, about the franchise-ness of this pug. Because this pug is iconic. The way he talks, hilarious. Him being a politician, but in disguise, great. He's great in this role in this movie. I do not like that they made him the mascot of Men in Black.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. The worms were the mascot.
Gave him an even bigger part in Men in Black 2.
And the animated made a bunch of toys around him, and he had a huge role in the video games.
Huh.
Unnecessary.
I don't know that.
It is mostly because he's a cute pug who's sassy and an alien.
Yeah. Well, this is where we learn that the galaxy is for subatomic energy. Size doesn't matter. You hear that, ladies?
Whoa, for galaxies.
Yeah. But also the interrogation part is they were originally just gonna like hold him up by a scruff.
Which would have been hilarious.
But they couldn't do that because it would hurt the dog.
Yeah, I understand. Don't want to do that.
And so they decided to kind of shake it, but they said the dog seemed to like really enjoy it. He was actually happy, so they had a hard time like...
Honestly, it's a pug. I've had... Not a pug, but I've had bulldogs. And like, you could... I mean, they love everything.
Okay.
They're such like attention sloppy, floppy little shits. They're great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can totally see this dog just be like, hey, I'm being held.
Yeah, well, and also, like, so there's something I don't get about the dog, like, this part, the 2.
Okay.
Is he's being very cryptic about a lot of shit, and then he starts barking at a cat that tells them that, hey, oh, wait, the jewel's around the cat's neck, like...
Yeah, which, I mean, it is mostly just a, cat and dog gag.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like the idea that even an alien is offended by cats.
Yeah. An alien dog.
An alien dog is even offended by cats.
I don't know. It's a weird way to, like, take a hint, guys. The galaxy's on Orion's belt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we cut to the morgue, and the galaxy's revealed because the mortician looks at the bell and is like, ooh.
It is shiny.
And the bugs dude is there, unfortunately.
Of course. The fact that this man hasn't been thrown into actual jail yet is just a real testament to the faith they put in 90s New York City.
Even cops don't want to deal with this guy.
No, they really don't.
But has no one seen the galaxy before on the cat? Like,
it appears no. And it seems like maybe this was at one point mostly an indoor cat who has escaped and is now free.
Okay. Well, I do have I have a question about Orion.
Okay.
Is he an alien?
I like to think he's not. Okay, and here's why I like to think he's not.
Okay.
Because cats are already weird. As an owner of 2 weird cats yourself, the cats don't need aliens to be weirder. The cats are already at peak silliness.
Okay.
And so I can see how cats would confuse an alien and also bewitch them into taking care of them.
Well, okay, so here's why I question it.
Mm-hmm.
Is because the cat always seems to know when the bug is near.
I mean, it's a cat.
So?
90s cat logic, man. That tracks.
My cats get scared by a feather duster.
Your cats are dumb as hell.
Yeah. But it makes me question, I wonder if, like, maybe it's, like, some type of, like, bug detector that's not, like, high-tech, it's just
a cat is, like, really in tune to bugs. Because, like, I could also believe that.
Or he's an alien.
True. Maybe.
Theories. There's no answer.
I don't know. Ours woke out of a dead sleep from across the house today to go chase down a moth in the other room. So,
amazing.
Like, this is his only task in life.
Good. Also, the cork in the scene is a dumbass.
Oh, yes.
Just squashing the bugs right in front of the dude and tells him not to. I mean, dude's getting pissy at you. You're going to keep doing it. If it wasn't him, he was going to pull a gun on you.
That's true.
Yeah. But the MIB shows up, and there's a reference here that
there is.
Jay says, he says, don't go Jack Webb on her. I had to look this up. It's a spinoff of the Dragnet franchise.
Yes.
So, for those of you who don't know like me.
Honestly, it wasn't a solid reference even back in the day.
Okay. But also, Jay, once again, is not good at smooth talking. He's
really not.
No, he's so dumb. He thinks she's hitting on him. And here's the thing. He's supposed to be tracking this stuff down. He's supposed to be getting the cat and hunting this bug, but he stops to flirt.
All the time.
Yeah.
Constantly, yeah.
Yeah, Kay is more observant.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but that's only because goo drips down on him.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to miss.
Yeah, but Edgar's smart enough to catch on about what's going on.
True.
And he gets the collar. Actually, what happens to the cat? Because he grabs the cat.
I don't know. I don't remember. I
don't think he...
Does he pull an Alf and eat it? I can't remember.
No, he gets the cat. I don't think he does eat the cat. I think after this scene, the cat's just gone.
Good for the cat.
Because like he gets away and he eats the galaxy and does like this little happy-ish dance.
That's true.
Yeah, and so also with this chase scene, Jay is trying to somewhat hide his weapon from the public.
Yeah, not doing well though.
No,
he does have the large one.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm gonna chase down this taxi. Not like there's thousands of taxis in
I do think that's
New York.
Funny. Yeah, I do think that's hilarious.
Yeah. But it's time to take action, or goodbye to Earth. Jay is thinking outside the box about the old shuttles because everyone's like, well, how do we stop this? If that bug gets off the planet, it's over.
Yeah.
But he remembers the original shuttles.
Oh, good point.
Also, why he is the man for the job.
True.
Yeah. But now we get the cool tunnel scene of them getting there.
It is good. It has aged a bit, but it's still fine.
Yeah, it's fun. It's got its little bit of comedy.
Yeah.
Buckle your seatbelt.
It's very universal action. Yeah. I like it.
And according to the handbook, the power is called Fast Forward. It allows the car to exceed 400 miles per hour. But not only that, the car is equipped with floatable tires, laughing gas, bulletproof windshield that can be cracked by fast-moving pebbles, AM/FM radio,
that's nice,
air conditioning, power windows and locks, and power steering. They can't even get intergalactic radio. It's just regular AM/FM radio.
And don't they also have the not cassettes, the bigger ones? Isn't that
8-track?
Don't they also have an 8-track player in the car?
I didn't pay attention that much.
I think they have an 8-track player because I can't remember now.
Not even. I don't know.
Honestly, they're only one step down from the Batmobile.
Yeah, but this is where I get the Elvis isn't dead. He just went home.
Hilarious. My favorite gag.
And now to the saucers. her pleas for escape are weak, let me tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Put me down, I'm not even that filling.
Yeah. It's giving Daphne from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
It's giving a weak-ass damsel in distress.
Yeah. And she only gets away because he drops her and she falls down through some trees.
Yeah, and even then, she doesn't, like, scurry away all that quick. She kind of watches him continue to climb.
Yeah, well, he even's like, meh.
Meh.
Which, he takes off, but is shot down. Awesome composition shots.
Agree.
Because this was practical.
Yeah.
And superimposed.
It looks good.
And we get the final fight, where solid alien effects, we finally get to see the cockroach.
We do. He looks good. He's not my favorite alien in this. He's a little bit too, like, I don't know. He doesn't quite fit the rest of the CGI like styling, but that might just be the lighting.
He kind of looks a little, you know, in that era in like the 90s when like all the anime animals had those same eyes.
Yes. Yeah.
That era of eyes.
It's got not quite distinct enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's no giant marshmallow man.
Yeah. Oh, also Kay gets his bigger gun, which is
Hooray.
or Jay does. Yeah.
Yay.
So he's proven himself.
Yeah, he's finally coming up. He's
Yeah.
gonna be the next agent.
Kay has the holding breath of an anime character.
Yeah, actually.
He gets. I do like the bit where he's taunting him, "Eat me, eat me."
Yeah, that's funny.
But I also like that Jay's not living up to stuff. Again, they're just humans fighting an alien.
That's true, and it does beg to question is 2 agents really all we need?
No.
We probably could have used a whole squad here, guys.
Oh yeah, but also. Oh, I also think like they did the way they cleverly put this in, that the solution to pissing the bug off, or his weakness, was killing other bugs.
Yes, which we have played on for the rest of the movie, which I like.
This is the 3rd time we've seen it,
so like the running bit did pay off, and I appreciate that.
Yep, and eventually they do kill the bug. Well, Kay kills the bug.
I mean, he has to. It's his final hurrah.
Shoots him from the inside, and yeah, he's they almost they're saved by Laurel.
Which, if you think about it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the thickness of the skin of the bug would be the same from the inside and the outside.
Internal pressures.
I mean, it would hurt more, but I don't know if you would explode.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd die if you,
no.
but I don't know if we would be exploding.
Nice play on cockroaches will always live as long as they have their head, because
he does come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good catch.
Yeah, which, by the way, the official handbook says he was captured.
I don't think he was. I think he died. But I appreciate the, PG-ness of that.
They also put his weakness as raid roach and ant killer.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
But, so, this is the part where it is time to say goodbye to Kay.
Mm-hmm.
Same speech in the intro movie.
Yeah.
But also, put this in Jay's perspective.
Okay.
He had this entire movie, at least from the day he's hired.
Yeah.
Takes place across a total of 3 days. Or no, total time frame of the movie is 3 days.
The man doesn't even know how to do paperwork yet.
No, his work day has been 2 human days, which I have some questions on that, whether it's the Centurion time or human days, because it's the Centurion days, then that's actually 3 days, but yeah,
whatever.
All there.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
which is why I would have kind of enjoyed if this had been a full year and like we just didn't talk about it, because then I could understand Jay not feeling ready but being actually able to step up and do it. But 3 days is not enough time.
Yeah, because here's the thing. So we have the happy ending that now Kay's in the tabloids.
Mm-hmm.
He was in a coma for 30 years.
Wow.
Also, they neuralized them to remove their own PTSD.
I do appreciate that.
But we get updated suits. We get another alien reference that Dennis Rodman's also an alien.
Of course.
But she's like, oh, how did you know that? And it's like, why are you so impressed? As far as we know, he's had 2 days more experience than you.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't explain a whole lot. It does set up false expectations for young children in the 90s and what their work life should look like.
Yeah. No, like, it just, This part was just a dumb part of the ending.
It is 100%. I would have almost preferred it more if he had gone back to the office and Jay just like doesn't know how to like make a photocopy.
Yes.
Can't find the coffee machine.
They turn it into the MIB version of The Office.
Yeah, where like he's the like most useless employee, and that's why he's still doing like the shitty field work of getting like guts on him. Is because that's the newbie's gig.
Or the stars gig, like on the other guys, where it's like the hot shit's coming to the office.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now we get the zoom out of the planet, that our planet and our galaxy is just another marble, and ultimately we know nothing.
I do like this ending. It wasn't originally part of the script.
No.
It was added like halfway through filming when they realized they needed to rework some stuff and just kind of like threw some darts at the drawing board, and this one stuck. They liked it.
Yeah. I think it works well because now it plays back on the beginning of, instead of a dragonfly in the desert. Yeah. We're basically in a space desert.
Yeah.
In a marble.
We're, part of some kid's marble collection.
Yeah.
Which, no, I love this, like, metaphorical ending. I really think the franchise should have played more with the whole concept. Mm-hmm. We won't get into too much 2 and 3, but let's just say we forget about all that. Yeah. Just chuck that cool idea out the window.
Yeah. Because,
that's it. And then the credits roll, and unfortunately, unlike the beginning credits, which did have a cool dragonfly to keep my attention, the rest of the credits have nothing.
It's regular text scroll.
There's not even something cool at the end of this, guys.
Yeah. And Men in Black, when it came out, was mostly well received. I mean, it was the third highest grossing film of 1997.
Critics were mixed, but audiences loved it.
Yeah. I mean, hell, it was in theaters at the same time as Hercules, Face Off, Batman and Robin.
Yeah, which, I mean, let's not lie to ourselves. Batman and Robin, while I love it, not hard competition.
Mm-hmm. And it's got 3 sequels, TV show, video game spin-offs.
It was nominated for several awards. It won one of them at the Academies.
Yeah,
I don't remember which, but like, it was impressive enough that people were kind of taken surprised by what was meant to be kind of a silly blockbuster.
Well, and also at the same time, so I think Men in Black sits in this weird. It's one of those movies where it's a movie we didn't know we wanted, kind of thing.
I completely agree, because people liked alien movies. Mm-hmm. We knew people liked alien movies, and the timing was still good for an alien. But I don't think anyone was really doing aliens like this. The only really goofy alien we had was Alf on TV, and he's more sitcom, everyday slice of life.
I think Third Rock from the Sun was...
Yeah, but again...
Coneheads. But Coneheads was over the top.
And also just very slice of lifey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was... like the concept of human life from an alien perspective, which is good and interesting, but like no one was doing action comedy.
Yeah. Well, and here's where I'll compare it similar to John Wick.
Okay.
Where John Wick wasn't intended to be, it's kind of opposite in that regard. John Wick wasn't intended to be a big box office.
True.
But it's one of those movies where they both slowly build their worlds, and it's this underworld. Mm-hmm. But this Men in Black just has more comedy, and John Wick is more serious.
Yeah, and also, like, the audience is a little different. John Wick was definitely aiming more at a men and, like, older teens. And Men in Black was aiming very squarely at the, like, youth.
Yes, but not just a movie building the underworld, a believable movie.
Yes, and a huge portion, and this is true for both John Wick and Men in Black, is that it is so over the top, and there's so many plot holes and world holes, but it doesn't matter. No. Because all of it's over the top and crazy, and so it doesn't matter if none of this works.
Exactly. But, I mean, honestly, as a movie,
yes,
I think this is one of those ones where the series could have been greater than it was.
I agree, but it did suffer from early 2000s syndrome, which was the sequel had the potential to do a lot. However, a lot of people felt the need to do something different, do something new and exciting while maintaining what they thought was capturing the old spirit.
Go over the top now that we've established the world.
And we've learned since that most people, when they say they want a sequel, they just want more of that world. Mm-hmm. So here's to hope that, like, in the future, now that people understand that, maybe we can drift away from these, like, obnoxious style sequels, because Men in Black 2 was pretty terrible. Men in Black 3, a little bit better, but not by a lot.
Yeah, there's some... I watched Men in Black 3 for the first time this weekend. Yeah, there's parts of it where, like, the comedy just doesn't hit. Like
and it's not even in the same way as like, we picked bad everything. Like the first one, everything's bad too, but it's all a chemistry lesson as far as like who's playing what and what level of insanity to go to. And both 2 and 3 suffer from the idea that the plot needs to be very tied in to everything, and it doesn't.
Even with the same writer and director.
Yeah.
So,
which is disappointing because we know that the director has the ability to do a good sequel. Addams Family 2 was very good and very successful, but it didn't hit with Men in Black.
Yeah. So, Chris, on the good, bad, weird scale,
yes,
how do you rate Men in Black?
Oh, it's a good.
Solid good for me,
It's a solid good. I hadn't seen it in a little while, so I was a little worried that it would move into bad just from aging and suffering from 90s action and comedy, but honestly, it still looks great. The comedy still lands. There's only a few parts that are a little bit cringy, but it's so fast-paced, you don't remember it.
Yeah, I kind of was in the same boat, too. I had seen it a little bit more recently, or parts of it, but I hadn't seen it fully, and especially with us going through, like, Braveheart and The Patriot.
I was also holding myself out for that disappointment of, like, something I used to really like doesn't hold... honestly, it still holds water.
Yeah. So, would you recommend Men in Black?
Oh my god, yes.
Yes.
And, like, not just Men in Black. I know we've said time and time again that the second one and the third one are not good. However, I recommend falling into the just stupid hole of Men in Black. Look it all up. Read the, like, side books that come with them. Like, they're silly, they're funny. They really don't add a whole lot to everything, but, like, they do expand on the nonsense of the world.
Yes.
And, like, it is definitely a entire franchise that is meant to be consumed in the most childlike way possible. Enjoy the hell out of it. Don't look too deep.
Nope, I agree. And I definitely, I recommend this movie quite a bit. It still holds up. I think the comedy is still there.
In fact, I like it so much I didn't bring it to return it to you because my husband hasn't had a chance to rewatch it with me.
Oh, we got 4th of July planned, so
it might be on the list.
Yeah, no, it definitely holds up still, which is good to see. So
I'm very happy that it made it.
Yeah. So now comes to the end of our show where we have the 3 degrees of Takashi Miike.
So for me, this feels like maybe a slightly harder one.
Nope. This one's really fucking easy.
Of course. Tell me about it.
So, year 5, Good, Bad, Weird podcast. We have we have our game. Read the rules again for new listeners. 3 degrees of Takashi Miike. Has to be a movie connection. Can't use the same connection, i.e. movie actor, writer, director, twice. As well, I'm going to try and make them as thematic as possible as I can. And what happens if I win? We get a full month of Takashi Miike, and if Chris wins, we get a full month of Barbie.
Get excited. My hopes die a little every time we play this game, though.
We'll see. I'm getting a little nervous on a couple of these. So, for this one, I went with Linda Fournette, who played Laurel.
Yeah.
Who was in Vision Quest with Forrest Whitaker.
Yes.
Who was in Killers Kill, Dead Men Die with Rinko Kikuchi.
Oh no.
Who was in Terraform Mars, directed by Takashi Miike, a movie about humans fighting highly evolved cockroaches.
Damn it, that's a good connection.
I did want to go with, Will Smith, just because I know we don't have any Will Smith movies planned. I know we don't have any Fortio movies planned too. But here's the thing that I'm coming into issues with. Will Smith was also in Biling, who again, she was in 3 Extremes. And I can't, she's not directly connected to Miike. And also, almost every person in this movie and the next movie tied to Hostel.
That's true.
Like, there were so many ties.
That's true.
And I'm saving that Hostel card for something else.
I understand.
Yeah, so, but, anywho, this has been the good, the bad, and the weird.
Thanks for listening.
Peace! So we just heard there was a bunch of radio signals got redacted off of Jupiter and got discombobulated through some swamp gas. Any confusion should clear up in about 3 to 5 days. After that, you'll want to check out more episodes of the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast, especially our other alien-related episodes. We thank you for your time, energy, and cooperation. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace.